Although they did start working with the Beals revolver in the year of 1856, it would not be the same as what you think of the Remington New Model Army today.
And if you're like me, you're into the history stuff, the books, like the guns are worth their weight in gold. Because the gun, it's fun to shoot, it's fun to point with, but without the story there, if you're a history person like I am, without the story, it really doesn't mean all that
The Ruger Security 9.
Can I redraw?
You already looked?
No.
You sure
Alright.
you didn't?
Now on 3.
Another pro, at least a pro to me, is these guns are kind of a project. I like to look at them as I'm getting an advanced kit build in the mail whenever I get one. So it's a project that you can go down the road and you can either leave it as
Most people believe that the Walker was Colt's first extent to a very, very large pistol, but it wasn't. This was. This is Colt's 1839 to patent firearms revolving carbine pistol. It is massive.
And hello, everyone, and we are back. And this is kind of an impromptu live because we actually came up with a special guest for tonight. And that is Madras Arsenal over here. But let me go through who all we got, of course. Down here below me, we have Ethan. I'm Garrett, by the way. And we have Duke Fraser Productions over to the right under John Wayne's picture. It says, "That's what stupid looks like." And we have Will the Real Snapper.
I forgot to change the name. I forgot to take all the rest of the name off. Actually, don't change it.
And our special guest tonight is Madras Arsenal, which really this should have been done a long time ago because he was doing the India-made muskets a long time before 11 Bang Bang was, I believe.
Yeah, so for future reference, if you guys like watching the Indian-made muskets, Madras Arsenal is the reason why I got into Indian-made muskets. So,
And since this was short notice, I didn't get a chance to link his channel in the description of the videos, but I will after this video goes down. But for now, you can just type in Madras Arsenal, right? And it'll come up.
Yep, it'll be right there.
So
Nice.
the subject was, what do you guys want to talk about? But before we get into that, I think we should meet our special guest. And usually the first question we have is, what got you into black powder firearms? You know, what was your first? What's your favorite? You do historical firearms? Tell us the story.
So what got me into black powder? Man, probably the movie Zulu when I was a kid.
Yes.
I mean, gosh, we used to watch that movie religiously. Like whenever it would come on TV, like everything would stop and watch it. So I always had a passion for like Martini Henry, and then also reenacting. I was a huge American Civil War fan. And I remember as a kid going to battlefields and things like that and seeing reenactors, and I always thought that was really cool. And so that's kind of where it started, and I loved firearms and things like that. Like my dad was in the military, my brother, me, and all that stuff. So like it was just kind of part of us and stuff, and like we loved shooting and things like that, and I just loved smoke.
Yeah.
So you know, that and seeing cannons, like one day I want to have a cannon, like super nerdy, but
That's everybody's dream. There's nothing wrong with that one.
yeah,
Nothing wrong with that. I want a cannon so bad just to scare my neighbors every morning.
yeah, that's a good goal to have, right? And so like my first reenacting event, I did American Revolution, and just kind of got on flintlocks after that, and then worked up to the Martini Henry, which I still have. and I started reloading for it and everything. And one thing I liked about the flintlock is that it was easy. I was really poor at that time, and like it was economical for me to get powder and lead shot. Like it was easy for me to do, so I could shoot it as much as I wanted. And being an Indian musket or Indian made musket, I knew for a fact it wasn't going to blow up, so that's why I got it. And it was durable.
Oh man, you were getting it. I remember watching your videos several years ago. You were getting it from all sides back then, because I think you may have been literally one of the only people on YouTube preaching you can shoot these India-made muskets.
It was it was a Custer moment, really. Yeah, it really was.
Now, you sure you're not dead, right? I mean, you are sure you're not dead.
Nope, still here.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember distinctly because I went and looked into finding cheap muskets, and because I always wanted to get in flintlocks, but they were just so expensive. And I was like, Indian-made muskets, and everybody, they're gonna blow up in your face. Oh, they're wall hangers, and I was like, I want to see these on YouTube. And then I see this guy is like, I'm gonna load this thing up about 3 times hotter than what it's supposed to be, and fire it off. Oh no, it didn't blow up my face. Imagine that.
Duke.
Duke.
Let's see. I made the one. What was it? It was kind of explaining it, and where I did like the 18th century proofing, and then the one where I shot like 17 rounds as fast as I could.
Yep.
Because I thought for sure, like, no, I actually didn't think it would blow up. I just wanted to prove that you could shoot it with a very hot barrel, and it still would not catastrophically fail.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at some point, I do want to do a video of like how you guys did. Whenever I get another flintlock. And it'll be a long land pattern again, and I want to go to like catastrophically fails, which you guys had how many grains of powder?
1,200 grains of Fora and 3 round balls and about 2 inches of canvas wadding on top of that.
And it didn't blow the gun up like you would think. It just banana peeled the very tip, like the inch of the end of it.
Yeah, and that's what I found really interesting. Like you would think that it would have happened at the at the breech, or not the breech, but whatever, towards the vent hole or more towards the center. But even like if you go back to the 18th century, you'll find that cannons had like a shot life, of so many rounds until it was within a time frame to catastrophically fail.
The 1766 French Charleville, as we call them, the reason it got replaced with the 1769, the 70, and the 73 and 74 and on was because they'd lightened it up by lightening the barrel down, and they had proven that over, I think it was like 2,500 rounds of sustained fire, it would eventually give out, and it always gave out at the breech.
2,500 rounds. That's a lot of.
That's a lot of lead, but it was enough for the French government to be like, yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll replace them with something with a little thicker barrel. And then they went to a thinner barrel again, but they thinned it down at the muzzle, not so much the breech.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, I'm reading
about those French guns here lately.
Yeah,
never been. Never been fired and only dropped once.
Especially on that hill the other night.
Yeah.
What I find funny is that when you go back to the 18th and 19th century, it's the opposite for French weapons.
Right.
The French had the best. The French had the best army, and the British had the best navy. And unfortunately, on Europe, Navy trumps army pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, so, I'm reading the comments. The answer organ out back is definitely dot, not tomahawk.
So, Duke Frazier Productions. Man, you're all dressed up. Have you been reenacting?
No, I just threw the hat on.
This is how it looks normally.
This is a Dickie shirt.
I thought it was Long John's.
No. I could put those on, but a lot of people are gonna close the window.
Same drunken sheriff, same hat, same outfit. Let me hear you laugh.
Oh, speaking of which, Duke, the other day I was watching on YouTube some old wrestling footage from way back in the day with
Seen Mick Foley, didn't you?
yeah, oh my God, you guys look the same. Like you look like Mick Foley.
I'm gonna have to look that up because I can't picture who he is in my head.
Cactus
Mankind.
Jack. Mankind.
When he got thrown off this, it was one of like Hell in the Cell things they called it.
Mhm.
Wrestling matches where there's this big cage and he got thrown off of it. He got the crap beat out of him and he kept coming back. But you look just like him. You're a spitting image of him. You got to be like a long lost son, or you're a clone. Like somebody just cloned you at one time. I've never seen somebody look like somebody so much.
But it doesn't look quite as much because Duke's trimmed his beard here recently.
That is true. You have to have the messed up beard first. Before you look at it, you need to get your beard all scruffy.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna let it get scruffy again, but not for a little while.
So, Snapper,
Uh-oh.
I heard you've had an interesting week.
Uh,
Are we
Sure.
gonna
Did you
talk
knock over Samuel Colt's son's revolver again?
Not this time. Not this time. I actually didn't mess up anything this time. Well, kind of. Well, no, Jake did all that for me. Jake decided to break all my guns and then take one home with him. I'm sure we're going to hear about that later. We went shooting, and most of it's my fault because the last like 2 years has just been a pain in the butt for me. But so some guns I haven't shot in a while, and I'd forgotten that there were little quirks that, hey, I need to get this fixed. So we go out there and bang, and then it breaks. It's like, ah, crap, that's my fault. But
it
you should have seen poor Jake.
collaborations? It doesn't matter if it's Wyoming or Kansas. When you break a camera out and try to collaborate,
Oh, you're a
Something's
big
gonna
gun.
break.
I promise.
Or
I
blow
swear
up.
to you, if we did not have the camera rolling, I guarantee nothing would have broken.
we
Hey, at least it didn't blow up in your face.
pop cartridges in a Remington rolling block in Duke's face. And then
I felt so bad for him, though. Poor Jake. When he was, he messed up the 1860, like the little catch came off the barrel. And I mean, little things here and there that were, some of them are kind of big, but not a real big deal. But man, you could tell it was really bothering me. He was like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like, why? Why are you sorry? It's a gun. It breaks. It's my fault that I didn't go over this stuff and make sure it was perfect before we came out here. But yeah, he had a lot of fun. He definitely fell in love with my my 73 single action Army, the black one, the 1882 one. I let him bring the 1880 home to do some videos with, but yeah, I could see he ended up really loving that 1882. That and the Dragoon.
I noticed that when I first posted these this morning, Antique Gunslinger, and the subject was, what do you want to talk about? And Antique Gunslinger said, let's talk about Kibler Southern Mountain Rifles. Weight difference.
Ah, yes.
And I thought that'd be a good thing to get into right here, Snapper, because it looks to me like you just got your first taste of a true Kibler Southern Mountain Rifle.
Oh, let's just say that will be the next gun that you're going to see me get.
Oh, they're
I
awesome.
fell in love with that thing. And it wasn't just, well, the one thing that kind of shocked me was like, when I first saw it, if it wasn't so long, I would have thought it would have been made for a child because it was really small.
Narrow.
But once you pick it up, you're like, this thing is so light, and you shoot it, its lock is so fast. I mean, it almost doesn't feel like you're shooting a flintlock at all.
Mhm.
Yeah, I loved it. I was easily hitting stuff out at a distance. And, oh, man, yeah. Woo, I fell in love with that gun.
And that was the 45, right?
Yeah, his was a 45, and he bought the
Colonial rifle in 50.
Colonial, yeah, and I think that was like a 50-something.
Yeah.
Like a 54 or something like that. But even the Colonial rifle, that was one nice rifle. But it's just that Southern Mountain Rifle. It's so small, but yet so.
They're little.
It's hard to explain. That thing was about perfect for if you were going to go hunting and carrying something around.
You don't
small game, not big
understand
game.
the importance of a swamped barrel.
No, oh man, it's so
narrow in the
nice.
center and flares out until you shoot a Kibler. And Ethan and I both have them. Ethan has the Woods Runner. I have a Southern Mountain Rifle. And I've handled Turkey Creek 1823's 45 versus my 36. And there's a significant weight difference. However, that swamp barrel makes the balance so good. I mean, the 45 feels more nimble in your hand, but the 36, it's when you throw it to your shoulder, the 36 sets still for me pretty good because it's.
I can see that because you have more metal technically there
in the barrel. Yeah.
Yeah, but his is so light. I mean, it's hard to explain. It felt like a little tiny 22. and it had good kick to it as well. You know, you put a decent load through it. It was just, it's accurate. It's beautiful. I mean, it's just gorgeous rifle. Yeah.
Duke, did you shoot the Southern Mountain Rifle when you came down here, or did we not break it out?
We never shot anything black powder except them Henry rounds.
We'll have to do that next time. I think you'll like it too. It's not like shooting. I've shot a whole lot of military style flintlocks, and the locks are fast, grant you, and everything. But when you feel that Southern Mountain Rifle in your hand, you're like, this is a part of me. Whereas these longer military guns are not part of me.
I don't know, Garrett. Have you handled my Charleville here lately?
I might, but
since I put it,
I have a thing for the squirrel rifle. I mean, I like the big. You have military stuff. I'm left-handed. I don't do military stuff.
I like paper cartridges.
I like to pretend like I'm Davy Crockett, and you can pretend like you're George Washington, I guess.
He prefers David.
Garrett, you could pull off the military thing right-handed because if you can't see out of that eye, you ain't gonna hit anything anyway. Most soldiers back then didn't.
That is true, but the trouble is when you're shooting the Southern Mountain Rifle, you kind of feel like if I miss, this is completely my fault.
You know what was? Did you see the slow motion video that I put up on those two? Man, that was interesting because I was shocked at how long it took for the ignition to go off. And in real life, you don't feel anything; it's just boom. And I actually didn't even want to post it because I'm sure people are going to go, "Oh yeah, this is a crappy lock. It didn't go off for it." It seems like it'd be a massive hang fire, and it's not. It's quite pretty. It's in really slow motion. It's quite pretty.
I've had comments on both Ethan and I's Kibblers. We'll put them on video, and people will write in and say that is the slowest lock I've ever seen.
Probably made in India is what it was.
And I was like, "There's a faster one."
Well, have you seen that 1774 French lock that I built here recently? How fast that thing is?
Just videos.
It is lightning quick. But there's one thing I need to work on it a little bit more because I noticed it consistently throws like not a whole lot of sparks. It throws like 5 sparks every time, but they always go right into the pan. So I want to fix it up where it throws a little bit more. A little better fireworks, so I think I actually hardened my hammer too much. So I might have to soften it a little bit. But me and Madras were talking the other night, and he brought up an interesting question that Duke could probably answer. Walls around forts on the plains.
What?
Walls around forts on the plains.
Don't have them.
Yeah.
They don't have walls because at that time, when the military started establishing them, like in the 1840s, they were getting away from that because there was 2 things. One was resources. 2 was arrogance. They didn't think there was any Indian force that could come in and wipe the man out, so they didn't need to waste the resources that weren't there.
Yeah, real men don't need walls.
No.
But the walls, because out there at Fort Laramie, if they was going to put a wooden stockade around that, you had to haul timber 40 miles, which they were doing anyway, just to put up buildings. And then at one point they really thought about putting walls up, but by that point, Fort Laramie had so many troops they didn't need it. But yeah, they were kind of not putting walls around forts at that time, and like I said, resources is number one, especially like out in your guys' part of the country. There's not a lot for timber out there besides cottonwood.
Nope.
Cotton ain't good timber.
What's funny is though, the civilians around here put up tens of wooden walled stockades in the 1870s. So I find that weird. But obviously they don't. The cottonwoods, like you said, they even mentioned it don't last very long.
See, the mindset was starting to change there in that late 1860s and 70s because Red Cloud's War showed that you got to have some kind of fortification. So that's why Fort Phil Kearny, Fort Reno, Fort C.F. Smith were built with palisades around them with the walls.
Well, if you're civilians too, the last thing you want to do is be caught on an open plain.
Right.
Well, one thing I noticed about Fort Larned is if you look at those big stone buildings they got out there, they've got gun ports 360 around them. So if anybody gets into the parade ground or anything like that, they can shoot inside of the fort itself.
So that was one thing that I noticed at Fort Washita was how the windows were made resembled the way they were built like by castles in Europe. it was probably just a design feature, but it seemed like you would have more room to get a shot off, basically, favoring on the inside, so you could hold up inside those barracks buildings.
Like the old arrow slits from castles is what you're saying? How they had like the taper to them on each side so you can move.
Yep.
It's the same thing at Larned.
Yeah, and a
Okay.
cross built into a window frame. Sometimes you'll see that cross built in there.
Okay.
That's for shooting. So you can close the shutters and you've got that cross. You can do the crossways or up and down.
Makes sense.
On the Kremlins.
Hmm.
And of course, you can always look down through the
murder holes.
matriculations. Sorry.
Garrett's having a Shadiversity
I
moment.
didn't do it as loud as he could. But anyway, that kind of leads us to on our subject here. What do you want to talk about? Desert Rat actually wrote in early. He wants to talk about forts of the Great Plains and any books about Army forts out west, information, links, etc. Guys,
Well, this is a really cool book if you want to read, or let me get this on camera. Oh yeah, I suck. If you want to research that topic right there, I forget, maybe I picked this up here at Fort Sill a couple of years ago, but it's all about Custer, and it's forts and other sites that are related to him, and out west. It's got Louisiana, Texas, Colorado, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming, and Montana. Yeah, that was.
Hey, it's just me and you now.
Yep.
Everybody else is not showing their face.
I'm still here.
I see it, but only you're hiding behind a little picture.
Well, where I'm at, I didn't exactly want to be
Of course.
showing everything
I'm
where
just
I'm
messing
at.
with you, man. I'm messing with you.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm pulling
Continue.
a snapper.
Pulling a snapper. Somebody get that man a mask.
Oh, there he is.
okay. Back while I'm waiting on Duke because I know he's getting some. I was gonna say the fort book that are in all these little fort, in the gift shop. You'll find this is one for Fort Dodge around here. Of course, they have one for Fort Larned. This is actually book number 5, but this one is Fort Dodge, Century of the Western Plains, and they have one of these in this series. Duke, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for every existing fort that's a museum at the moment. And I don't even know if Fort Dodge has much of a museum, so maybe for all of them. You know
right there.
what?
Oh boy.
He's coming for the pile of books, no doubt.
Oh no.
So you guys got it all wrong. There's only 2 books you need. Only 2 books. One being the Holy
Haven-
Bible,
Haven and
and then
Belgium.
the other one being Haven and Belden. There's no fort stuff in here because you don't need to know about it.
You don't need a fort if you got a
You don't need a fort when you got one of these.
Did you just hold up the Bible, or what was that?
That was Haven and Belden.
Oh.
We call it the Colt Bible because it's everything about Colt. I mean,
Looks
it's
like it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's
The thing about Haven and Belden, some things are outdated in that book. And
yeah.
what makes it so important is it predates R.L. Wilson, which means that it's got better information than anything post about 1970 up till about 3 years ago.
So, have you ever heard our spiel about R.L. Wilson? He's one of our favorite people around here.
Snapper's
He's
eye
a-
starts twitching.
I am like yeah. He basically was in the 60s and 70s. He was like the Colt guy in the world, and he basically ripped off the museum, faked guns, stole guns, screwed people over by overpricing guns and selling guns, making a commission on it. He was about as bad as it could get. And there's several like very early Colts, like one like the very prototype Colt that we actually don't know if it's the real one or not because he had those guns for a while, and those guns were found at a person who was known for faking guns. So he was either faking guns, making them look like it, or he faked the ones that they brought back to the museum.
And what he
And
did
the museum
was
doesn't want to care or know.
he would get a
Wow.
serial number that he wanted to sell for an exorbitant amount of money, and then he would write a book about it or about that
Yeah.
serial number range. And it would be all completely made up, well, at least 90% of it. And people, from the 70s, 80s, 90s took it as gospel and now try to tell those people something different today.
Oh yeah, that's the part. He ruined the waters. Most people don't know the story. They'll see him on like he was on the History Channel a lot for, the old school and actually had history on the History Channel. He was on there a lot, and nobody knew the real story of what happened. So it's you have to know what happened to understand what happened. Most people don't know that, so they still see him as being like his word is the truth, when he basically made up a lot of crap to sell guns, to make guns more valuable that weren't.
Wow.
And that's why Haven and Belden is the Bible, because it came before him. But anyway, Duke, you got books?
Yeah, so I just found the one that I was looking for the topic we went over last week. I told you there was another book I thought I had, I couldn't find it.
Tell him we are going home. Yep, you showed me that before.
Yep, so I'll get that read up for next week. But anyway, yeah, so I thought I had a book specifically on all the forts, and there is one out there. I didn't buy it, I guess. I just looked at it. I never did buy it because now to look on my shelf, I never remember having it on the shelf. But anyway, if you're looking for something that kind of goes over the military and what was going on at some of the forts, there's let's see. We'll do this one first. Robert Utley's 2 books, Frontiersman and Blue, which this one comes from the University of Wyoming. But that one is Robert Utley's book. It covers from 1849 to 65. Let me double check that. 48 to 65. And then the second one is Frontier Regulars, and it goes from 65 to 91. Regular Army O by Doug McChristian. This book is huge. It's got a lot of info, but great info on what was going on in some of the forts, like I said. And then we got Frontier Army and the Settlement of the West. And once again, just kind of general. And then if you want to start getting specific, you can get into books like this. This is the newest one I've got, which is down there in y'all's neck of the woods, Fort Reno and the Indian Territory frontier.
Oh, that'd be an interesting one.
Yeah, there's only like 3 Fort Renos that were in existence at the same time. I thought this was the one in Wyoming. It's not. It's one in Oklahoma. And then there was one in the South, too.
I don't have it here, but a great one is Carbine and Lance, History of Fort Seal.
Mm-hmm.
And that one has a whole lot of Oklahoma stuff in it.
Okay. I'm sure they got that one here on base. I could probably pick that up.
It's a fairly old book, so you might be able to. You might, maybe it's still in print. I don't know. It's called Carbine and Lance. It's a great book.
Remember that.
Duke, was there any books on that you can think of on the southern forts in the what's a good book for Bent's old fort or Bent's Fort, stuff like that?
For Bent's Fort, if you want to get specific, there's Leroy, not Hafen, David Lavender's Bent's Fort, which is a super dry read. Lavender does, there's some things he states in there that we know are not true anymore. Because it was written in the 1930s. That's a lot of thing with these history books is sometimes they get things wrong because they've been written way back when. Learn new things since, but
anyway,
like
that one book, Garrett, that said 58 rimfire was completely useless out past 50 yards.
That was not the book. That was an actual quote, and that quote was from a Remington spokesman. If that tells you anything. So that was he claimed the 58 rimfire was useless past because obviously he was pushing what the rolling block was running at the time, which was there was some rimfire stuff. They'd already come out with some centerfire stuff, but yeah, I'll make a whole section of that on the video in the next video because that's a whole thing. No, that wasn't Kevin R. Spiker. That was the Kevin R. Spiker book, Erskine Allen and the Arms of Freedom. But no, Kevin Spiker didn't say that. The Remington spokesman said that. That was a quote.
Which I find that funny. Didn't the Remington split breech shoot the same round for a time?
Not that round. It shot a different one, and I have to do the research on it. But that particular round, Erskine Allen made, or he developed it at Springfield, and then had Frankfurt Arsenal make it. Which all it was the Civil War paper cartridge in a rimfire. It was 60 grains in a 500 grain Burton bullet, and so it was. But they were pushing. They already had their by the mid 1860s. Rolling Block was already pushing out the 44. What is it, Duke? It's a centerfire. Their first centerfire. It's pretty close to 43 Spanish, but it's.
They had the 4495 or 4490, which
I-
was replaced by the 4590. And then there was the 44. Wait, no,
See-
that was a Sharps round.
That quote was actually written in the later 1860s when they were pushing some of them out on the market. It's a weird. I'll do it because I'm not that into. I don't understand all the history of the Remingtons, of course.
Trying to think of it because I know the split breech had fired Spencer rounds, and then
5650s or 5656.
both, and then there was a split breech I think that was chambered in 44 Henry, but they didn't put out too many of those. I have to go back and double check on that one.
Yeah, I don't know as much about those as I should. Do you know anything about it, Madras? Do you know anything about the rolling blocks? Your mic.
I think your mic's muted.
Yes, it was. No, I'm in uncharted territory, so I kind of stopped there at about 1780, and then I picked back up about 1870, whenever the Martini was made. But
Yeah.
I did have a question about the what was it, the 4570 using the trapdoors.
Mm-hmm.
So at the Battle of Little Bighorn, did they have a problem extracting ammunition? Like, did the ammunition ever deform or anything like that?
This is
going to be a fun
This
answer.
is a very deep question that depends on what time period you ask it. What archaeologists are going to tell you nowadays.
Yeah, and so there's
Interesting.
evidence of
Okay.
it happening. There's evidence of it happening at Little Bighorn. They have found pocket knives with broken knife tips in cases that you can tell where somebody dug in there with a knife, because that copper alloy cases they were using really corroded easily, and then you put them in a leather belt. The leather is tanned with tannic acid and quite a bit stronger than what they're using today. And so you're setting yourself up for corrosion. And that's why, like at Wagon Box and stuff, those trapdoors did not jam. They didn't have that much problems with them, is because they're shooting ammunition that's straight fresh out of the box. I mean, the box comes off the wagon and they're opening it up and start handing out bullets.
Yeah.
And
Whereas by Little Bighorn, they've had that ammunition in those leather belts for weeks.
Yep.
And so that all corrodes, and then like fouling's not helping, and then the case was softer, and so the extractor would tear out the rim. And then on top of that, the carbine doesn't have a cleaning rod underneath the barrel like the infantry rifle does, because you don't see that complaint a lot with the infantry, because you can take that ramrod out. It
was actually in the manual of arms for the 66 that if you broke the ejector spring, use the rod and you'll still be faster than a muzzleloader.
Yep.
Now, what the truth,
Interesting.
this is where it's very, very interesting, because when you study it in depth, there was a push in the late 1800s all the way up through the 1930s to make Custer look like a hero.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about, Duke? And so a lot of that burden of why did we fail here went on the trapdoor and the 4570 cartridge. And if you read Colonel Shockley's book, The Trapdoor Service, or Trapdoor Rifle in the Service, he quotes in there, I think, I can't remember the exact number, but he's like, we found from archaeological evidence that there was as many as 500 cartridges with pocket knife. It looked like pocket knives had pried through them too, and they were broke. Well, another study was done, and the archaeology was done and they took all this into account in 1993. They're like, maybe it's more like 10 or so that we found. But they're like, it did happen, because just like Duke said, the ammunition, I don't even think it's because the ammunition was too soft because it was copper. It's like he said, copper corroded after being worn in those leather pouches, which there's a whole book over there on that, where they were actually supposed to, early on, they carried them in the cartridge box in the metal container in wood.
Yeah.
In wooden holes. So that was the 50-70s. That's how they carried them. They were well protected. Well, Duke, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong here, because I'm going off memory, but there was a point where the cavalry actually allowed, sometime in the 70s when they were using, early 70s when they were using the Spencer, cavalry was allowed to purchase their own cartridge belt from locally. Have you heard that?
Yeah, because the Army, after they were fighting out there on the West for a while, the Army started to encourage soldiers to modify their belts, buy belts for carrying the cartridges inside the belt, especially by the time you get in the 1870s, because cartridge boxes are just a pain in the butt when you get into the metallic cartridge era. While they were a pain in the butt during the muzzleloader era. But it's
I
just
found that out.
Extra. Yeah, you can only carry 20 rounds inside of a cartridge box for a Spencer. If you're using the old Sharp style, so let me correct, the Sharp style cartridge box is like 20 rounds. You're not going to get more than 2 of them on your belt with everything else you got, because you have to have a pistol ammunition box, your pistol holster, the cap box, and your saber on your left side. So everything was getting in the way. So that's when they found out, hey, if you run cartridges around your belt, depending on the size of the guy, and most of these guys are not, they're not over 150 pounds, and they're not over, I think it was 5'5" was the cutoff for the height in the calf. So you're still getting more ammunition on that belt on a small guy like that than you can carry inside of those cartridge boxes. And
The thing is that I feel like Little Bighorn was the perfect storm. Obviously, things are happening really, really quick there.
Yep.
And you can look at fights after fight. And the U.S. military hung on to that copper alloy all the way up to 1888. So they hung on to that a long time.
I think they modified that.
They didn't modify. I can actually tell you exactly when. Let me grab a book over here. But they didn't modify it till 1888. They modified the primer and the anvil, but that's about it.
That was
even the 73 single actions. Their ammo stayed the same until the late 1880s.
I feel like that's a common thing with the U.S. Army, though, is they always it's like they're slow to adapt new stuff.
What I think, because me and Garrett actually had a conversation about this a long time ago, is the ammunition, if it isn't corroded, it wasn't that bad. It actually worked pretty good. You already have a crap ton of it made. If there's no real issue with the ammunition except for if it gets corroded, if you fix that corrosion problem, you ain't got a problem.
Right.
And they did a lot of testing with that copper and brass setup to make it work. And they actually had some really interesting numbers, because it wasn't like they just say, hey, here's some copper, let's just make it. They test alloys after alloys after alloys, and that ended up being one of the best behind brass.
Okay.
But it was just the corrosion that was the problem.
So they hung on to the exact same copper cartridge until 1886 when it was tinned. And they didn't send those out right away. So you have your all your different cartridges for 45-70. You have your original 73 rifle, 73 carbine. Let's see. And then you have your 77 rifle and your 79 rifle cartridge, the 81 rifle cartridge, the 82 rifle cartridge. And all those are actually changes in primer and lubrication. Mm-hmm. And then you get to the 86, and that is when they really settle in on the Morse primed cartridge and the 86 original tinned. Now, they would change it one more time in 88 because they changed the primer one more time. And then in 98, they went to smokeless in the 45-70 for the trapdoor.
Right.
So and they just tended to keep corrosion down.
But
as a
all that to say this, after Little Bighorn, we changed the sights on the rifle.
Yep.
We put a cleaning rod in the butt of the rifle in 1877 when they had no money to do so. They found money to do that. They changed military doctrine. They changed marksmanship standards. They changed the bullet. They changed the primer. The one thing they did not change was the copper alloy for over almost 15 years, 13 years anyway.
Yeah.
So, and the single action had the exact same setup. I mean, they kept it with the copper in the single action as well the entire time.
Well, another way they got around that was Anson Mills. Captain Anson Mills of the 3rd Cavalry, who participated in the Great Sioux War 1876. He was at the first Powder River campaign, the Reynolds fight. He was with Crook through most of that, so at Rosebud and all them. He patented a canvas belt. Mm-hmm. And that got past the leather corroding everything because you don't have that acid sitting right there. In fact, I can show you what happens when you put, even with brass. Let me go grab that. I'll be right back.
Oh yeah.
Before you go, Duke, I got one thing. And I can't think of what it's called. What is the name of the box? The box that folds out like an accordion with leather on the outside and canvas on the inside.
There's
not the Blakely box. Yeah, no, yeah, the McKeever box. That was the first. That was the first attempt to fix the leather corrosion issue. The second was the Metcalf adapter, which was a wooden container that strapped on the side of the rifle. But yeah, they worked, and a lot of people it just drives me crazy when people oversimplify it. Well, they had bad guns and bad cartridges.
You had the Dwyer pouch to come out, and the Dwyer pouch was nice because it had sheepskin in it, which that doesn't corrode as bad. The problem is you can't get more 10, 12 cartridges, if I remember right. That's not good for combat. That's basically for garrison duty.
Yeah.
Then they went to the McKeever, or excuse me, not the McKeever. It's the little
the belt, the slides on your belt.
It slides on the belt. I can't think of it. I'm having a brain fart here. But anyway, then they went to a McKeever box. There was another box that they adopted in 1874 as well. The McKeever folded out. So it was more compact. This other box held like 20-some rounds, but it was pretty similar in shape and size to the cavalry cartridge boxes that they had.
Man, you guys are sending me down a rabbit hole of Army
Indeed.
now. Thanks.
You know, I'm surprised that nobody ever got bit by the good idea fairy and started handing out metal polish, saying, "Hey, keep an eye on your bullets. If there's any corrosion, start polishing."
Frazier cartridge box.
Yeah, there was
the Frazier cartridge
I
box.
can see
The
that.
only people that adopted it was the New Jersey National Guard, and that's why they're in pristine condition, because the New Jersey National Guard got all these military items that never used it. Dadgum one of them.
Well, we got a few of those, but Snapper, to that point, bear in mind these cartridges were brand new. They didn't actually start putting the 73 rifle. They put a lot of carbines out, but they didn't put the 73 rifles out till summer, fall of 74. Little Bighorn comes around 76. Those cartridges are really. It's the first time they've ever. It's the first time they've ever encountered this because the 50-70s got used up so fast. I'm
just shocked that they didn't start doing that after the Little Bighorn. Hey, there's some metal polish when you're sitting around just doing your thing.
So,
start polishing your brass or your copper.
Those metal boxes that set inside the Civil War style pouches, right? So this was the first answer to it, and one of the reasons why 50-70s never had that issue. This is how a lot of them were carried, and 58 rimfires. They just make these little holes.
The first ones.
Yeah.
The hanger number 1 and hanger number 2. Hanger number 2 is more for the calf.
And then you had
the Dwyer.
The Dyer. Right there. We're both looking at the same ones. And then you have the 1872 pistol cartridge pouches. But that literally is just a perfect storm where they start using leather right before Little Bighorn. Because before that, and even after that, as you can see, they have canvas loops in these boxes.
Hazen loops. That's what I'm looking for. The Hazen loop system.
Okay.
That's cool.
Found it. But then you have the McKeever boxes, which are pretty cool. They fold out kind of like an accordion. They're kind of dump boxes right there. You can see when you open them up, they're easy to use.
Interesting.
And a couple of my favorites are the cut loop McKeevers.
Now, keep in mind, these cartridge boxes were not field use. These are garrison use. This is what you're going to be using when you're on guard duty or any other duty in and around the post. They're still not using those. When they're out in the field, they're using mill belts, Fairweather Christian belts, which is the conversion where they sewed the belt loops on the leather, but they're going to be using something separate than what they're using in garrison.
This is
Those canvas belts are pretty nice, though. I kind of like them.
I like how that one curves around your body, the Butler box.
So I've got I think it was like the 1880s mills, and that seemed to be pretty effective when I was using that for the trapdoor for like my Spanish-American War era stuff.
Now, a lot of people do that, and I don't know if it's because I'm left-handed, but I prefer the cartridge box because I have a hard time actually finding the next one without skipping over it, and then I don't know how many I have left when they're behind me.
Yeah.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem I found with the cartridge box, and I know we weren't using the wooden inserts, but I did find when you go to the prone with a cartridge box, your ammo is getting dumped on the ground if you don't keep shutting the lid and latching it every single time between rounds.
That's
That
why
makes sense.
That's why you stay on one knee.
Yeah. Well, there's
Oh.
sometimes you got to shoot from the prone.
Yeah. Hardy said, love the new Springfield video. Sorry, guys, if I don't read everybody. I'm way behind, but we're just having a conversation here. I'm just going to go through here and look at you guys' ideas. Love the new
I got
Springfield
one.
video.
I got one comment I got to read before you start. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
ATO Con says he saw a wall gun from the 1700s on Pawn Stars get sold for $14,000. It was also test fired and worked perfectly. I need a wall gun. Runs to the rifle shop. Funny you should mention that.
Funny you should mention
that because I may or may not have put a wall gun on order and paid for it and everything. So you should be seeing a wall gun hopefully in the next couple of years from the rifle shop. Okay, there you go, Garrett. I had to get that off my chest.
Yeah.
That's gonna be an epic video. That's gonna be epic.
I don't know anybody with a wall gun. That's going to be so fun.
It's gonna be my pride and joy.
I bet.
How many feet long is it?
I've seen it there. They got one there. It's big. It's big.
I think it's 6 feet
the
long.
receiver
I think.
is about this big around. You
Yeah.
know, not the receiver, but the where the lock is.
Yeah.
Around the wrist.
Ferguson. Need a Ferguson.
All
You
right.
can let Snapper borrow it.
So to set home my point about the corrosion with these leather belts, these I've had some rounds sitting here. I've had some empty rounds sitting in this leather belt for probably about a year, maybe not quite that long, 9 months.
Ooh, Private Duke, you need to start polishing those cases.
Oh, I was shooting them one day and I put them back in the belt, and I haven't done anything with them since. But
Wow. And that's
Yeah.
brass, right?
that's brass. So
So
if that's
Wow.
happening with brass, which brass is superior to that copper stuff, imagine what
Yeah.
that copper stuff's going to look like.
Yeah.
my other question would be: is that veg tan?
This is vegetable tan, and this is why I tell people do not leave your guns sitting in holsters
Yeah.
for extended
Yeah.
periods of time, because that is what's happening. If it's going to do that to brass, it's going to do it to iron. It's going to do it to copper.
Hey, can you make his the full
I honestly
size?
thought that was
Garrett?
a 14 shotgun shell.
Garrett, can you make his full size to show it up close?
Yeah. Whoop,
Yeah,
that's
Not me,
that's not
Duke.
him. That's in. Yeah.
We just wanted to see your face.
Yeah, that's true.
Trying to get the focus.
Yeah, that is.
Wow.
And you said it's only about a year?
Yep. Well, less than a year, because I think it was less than a year, because it was last July that I put him in there because I went out to my buddy's place when
Holy
we was
cow.
out popping around. But
I thought it was a 410 shell.
Wow.
and this
That's
is
good.
smokeless ammo. This is not black powder ammo. This was smokeless.
Oh, wow.
You know what? I'd laugh if you pull a smokeless one out and it's pristine. I mean, a black powder one out and it's pristine.
No, them things usually turn green within a day.
Oh, I know. They do it quickly, but that would just be hilarious.
But there is a bit of a difference between the spent ones and the not spent ones. There's a little less green on that.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I think that what Duke and I,
Wow.
I mean, I think we've both done quite a bit of study, and what we've come to the conclusion of is it's not necessarily the guns, and it's not even necessarily the ammo. It's the storage and the way the ammo is kept that caused Little Bighorn to possibly have at least a few malfunctions. Now, here's the thing. If they had zero malfunctions, would that have changed the outcome?
Nope.
No. Not one little bit.
Nope.
You just
So-
would have found an intact pocket knife instead of a broken one.
Yeah.
I'm
And
sure they would have found something to take the blame. That's
Oh,
how
that
it always
is
works.
It would have been the
literally
ammo boxes.
Yeah, and even you can find this when you study Springfield history, because in 1879 they do a complete study, because the idea that the natives were so well armed was what got Custer killed. they did a study and they're like, so what were these natives actually using? So they actually go, all the natives that have come back from Canada or wherever, they bring them in that they can, or in the forts, they don't bring them to Springfield, obviously, but anybody that's talking to them, they get a feel, they get a, what gun did you have? And a lot of captured natives, they send the guns in for evaluation. And what they found out was, there's several hundred lever action rifles, not very many 73s, but there's way more single shot trapdoors and muzzle loaded Lehman rifles, at least that the people were turning in. Maybe they kept the good guns and turned the bad ones in. I don't know. But there was way more muzzle loaded Lehman rifles than anything.
Let's go down that rabbit hole right quick.
Let's go down that rabbit hole.
That would be fun. Yeah, let's do that.
I have a somewhere in here a table. Pretty sure it's this book.
Of the ammunition that they found.
I do.
No,
The
this
Spain
was,
ammunition.
so this was up at Fort Robinson when we was talking about our last Tales of the Trails. This is the when they captured the Cheyenne, the guns that they turned in. So Northern Cheyenne guns surrendered or captured 1878 to 1879. And so let's see here. So the first batch is 1 Winchester rifle, 1 Schofield Smith and Wesson revolver, 1 Sharps carbine, caliber 50, 1 Colt revolver, old pattern. So it doesn't specify model or
Probably
anything.
1860 or 51, maybe, probably.
Yeah. 1 Spencer carbine, 1 Remington revolver, old pattern. So that's,
Cap and ball.
1 shotgun, double barreled, 1 horse pistol, and 9 muzzle loading rifle,
Whoa.
various patterns, 15 or 20 sets of bows and arrows. And then
Hold on, wait. Duke, you said horse pistol. Are we talking like a Dragoon?
probably a single shot horse pistol like an Aston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would probably be listed as like a old model Colt if they would have been a Dragoon.
Then the next batch that they captured was 1 Henry rifle, 1 Springfield carbine, and 1 Sharps rifle, 2 unknown patterns, 3 muzzle loading rifles. And then they've got 7 Springfield breech loading rifles, caliber 50.
A lot of those.
1 Colts revolver, caliber 36. 1 Colts revolver, Navy, old pattern. 1 Springfield carbine, 45. 1 Remington revolver, Army, old pattern. 3 Sharps carbines, 50. 1 Sharps rifle, old reliable, which I think old reliable was 50-70, if I'm not mistaken. I may be mistaken on that one. Then the next batch, 4 Springfield carbines, caliber 45. Now, keep in mind, this is after Little Bighorn, so these are probably Little Bighorn guns or some other battle during the Great Sioux War. 2 Colt revolvers, caliber 45. 3 Springfield rifles, caliber 50. 2 Smith & Wesson revolvers, 44. 4 Sharps rifles, caliber 45. 1 Sharps rifle, caliber 50. 5 Colt revolvers, 44 and 31. So there's a pocket model. 4 Sharps carbines and 50, 1 muzzle loading rifle, old, 1 Remington revolver, 3 Winchester and Henry repeating rifles. Then the next batch is 10 Springfields, 4 Sharps, 1 Sharps, 1 Sharps, 1 Sharps.
And you know what this is telling me? There's a lot of single shot rifles in the hands of Indians.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, have you guys ever seen that the what do they call it, like Battlefield Detectives
Yeah.
series they did a long time ago when they picked up all the ammunition they found after that fire? And they found that there was quite a bit of, I think they said it was several 73 Winchesters and 66 Winchesters as well.
Where at now?
And then here is one.
Little Bighorn.
Repeating rifles sent from Fort Keogh by order of General Terry. So I don't know if that's a captured gun or if they captured General Terry's special gun.
All right, yeah. So just to kind of drive this home, let me full screen this here because I have it right here in my hand. This is the entire study as of 1879, October of 1879 that they'd done. And so I want you to see this. Now, page 1 here, this whole page, and that's not every gun. There's some of these are 17 per section. Some of them are 20. That's describing condition and which gun and serial number range it was in. This page is all Springfield carbines. And obviously this is a sample size of what they brought in. This page is all Springfield carbines are cut down. There's around 300 on each page there. because, like I said, there's several numbers per section. All right, so this is breech loading arms. That right there is the entire section of lever action guns that they assumed were used at the Little Bighorn by the natives. And
That's not much.
You're looking at 250 or so altogether there. Now, Spencers, there's a whole lot more Spencers. You're looking at 400 or 500. And like I said, they can't prove all these were there. This is just what they've captured from the guys later on. Sharps. Here's a section of Sharps. Miscellaneous carbines. You're talking Joslins, Warners, Stars, Wessons, Frank Wessons, Remingtons, Ballards, Gallaghers, Merrills. Man, they had 17 Merrills. All that right there. Now, this is Lehman's. This is Lehman's. Muzzle-loaded rifles. This is Lehman's. And this is Lehman's. There's 1,000+ Lehman rifles in the study, muzzle loaders. And they also do pistols and stuff, but that is what they had brought in, at least to Springfield. And most of the stuff was broken. But that just goes to show you that from what the natives they captured between 1776 and between 1876 and 1879, the Lehman was like by far the most common gun that they captured and brought back in. Now, and I could probably argue this to me too. It could very well be that they kept the best guns hidden somewhere and turned into them little muzzle loaders. But
so the ones I just listed off,
yeah,
they captured off of the Cheyenne and the Cheyenne outbreak.
Yeah,
that's what they turned in when they surrendered.
Okay,
that's the smoking guns. That's the guns that aren't functional.
So that's not the stuff that was under the floor.
That's not the ones that are under the floor.
Okay, so and like I said, it's
they didn't raise no fools. They're like, we're not going to give them our good guns.
But at the same time, that also tells you that I don't think there's as many lever actions there. What did you tell me one time, Duke? You thought there was 12 1873s, actual new 1873s?
No, they found evidence of 9.
9, yeah, on the native side.
1873s. That's not natives. That's total in the battle.
So that's
kind of funny because that thing I watched on the History Channel, they made it sound like that's the whole reason they won, because they had the cool new lightning fast single act or 73 Winchester. And they're like a few.
And well, I guarantee you by the end of the battle, they were all native guns.
Oh yeah.
Well, you got Custer's brother had, or not, was his brother? He had one, and several other officers there had them.
Tom had one. Yep. So they're going to be picked up as they fall, of course. But they tracked them around. The most common round they found, I think, was Henry, 44 Henry. Which makes sense because one of the more common ones, I should say, was the 66 and the 1860 Henry. Those were pretty prominent when you were in those in that territory because that's the older guns. They're getting sold at the trading posts for quite a bit cheaper price. And then
I wish 66s were cheap still.
Spencers flooded the market after the Civil War. So in the 1860s through the early 1870s, Spencers were all over. Okay. And if you could have converted that and made it a centerfire, I think you'd have still seen Spencers clear up into the 1900s being used. And there probably were some people that did use them.
I would say convert it to centerfire and fix the up and down issue. Make that ejector stronger somehow. Madrasa, you still there? We might have lost him.
Well, he had to step out because his mic's muted, apparently.
Did you guys want to hear something kind of neat that I found out when I was at the Las Vegas Antique Arms Show? I was looking through some of the Winchester records. Did you know a 66 Winchester was the exact, or the 70? I think it was a 73. It might have been the 66, but the exact same price for the 22 as all the other model. Like if you wanted it in 4440, the 22 was the exact same price.
Yep.
It was kind of shocked because these days it's not like that. And apparently, yeah, everything that you wanted 22, you wanted 38, you wanted 4440, whatever, all the same price.
Yeah, because I think the 73 was the only one they made in 22.
I think so. I don't know why I'm thinking 66 because I remember looking at it going, hey, I wish 66s was. I think it was a 73s because they listed the 66 as a big cheaper. You can get a 66 cheaper than a 22 73.
There was some questions in here for Ethan, and I'll wait till he gets back. Something must have happened to him. But I got to say, I gotta go back here and we'll talk to Madras here a little bit.
Yep, sorry I had to step away.
No, that's fine. I figured we were over talking you too much, but
No. I had to call my wife.
so why don't you tell us a little bit about you're kind of traveling around looking at some of these forts. You got a favorite, or have you only been to a couple? Or
So, the first time I was at Fort Sill, I went to Fort Washita and really liked it because it's derelict, it's run down and everything, or in ruins, I guess I should say. That has been the only one out west, like west of the Mississippi, that I've been to. But I do want to go to Fort. Is it Fort Gibson that's above Tulsa, I think? Or there's a fort north of Tulsa, I think, that I want to go to. I can't remember off the top of my head what the name of it is. But I'm used to more of the stuff on the eastern side, which has the walls, and that was my big question about why didn't the western forts have walls? So things like Yorktown, or the place I used to reenact, which was like a settlement of cabins that had a wall around it. Those are the kind of things that I'm kind of used to. But like any kind of fortifications, I love. Any time period, really. So like in Europe, when I went there was tons of forts to go see, and it was just really cool. And it's kind of neat to see like some of those same designs like over here in America, and it's just kind of cool. I'd say like Fort Pulaski and Savannah, where you got like one side of the fort that's just like demolished from cannon fire. It's really cool to see.
so that's the difference. Back east, they actually had battles in those forts.
Yeah.
Out here, I think the closest we got really to battles in the forts was when they stole the horses and ran them through Fort Laramie.
Now that's in Kansas, isn't it?
No, Laramie's in Wyoming. That's where Duke worked for a lot of years.
Man, that's gonna be I don't know if
Can
I'll
you-
be able to make it out there.
Can you tell us of any other forts that actually got attacked and over? Well, I mean, Fort Casper, I guess you'd say at Platte River Bridge, but
Yeah, they didn't
really
come across
fort.
the river, and that was more of a camp. It was not a fort yet. It was it's actually Platte River Station,
yeah.
Okay.
Platte River Bridge Station, excuse me. So yeah, it was just a little outpost, not a very big outpost at all. But the military had put all kinds of those along the Santa Fe Trail from Fort Laramie to Sweetwater, and I forget what the distance was, but it was something like half day's ride to a day's ride between them. You had Deer Creek Station. You had oh god, I can't even think of it. There's another station in between there. But yeah, I can't think of any other ones that were completely overrun, at least in the northern plains. Mostly because the forts are where the cannons are at. And cannons, the natives, even though the cannons weren't really effective in combat, without the exception of offensive operations against villages, that's the one time they were extremely deadly in combat. Otherwise, it was a fear factor show force. It's kind of like over there in Afghanistan when the bombers or the helicopters show up, everybody goes,
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
I was going to say the only one that come under attack was Fort Sedgwick or Camp Rankin, which is outside Julesburg, Colorado. It was just outside of town, and that was right after Sand Creek. So that was the first retaliatory attack that started the 1865 campaign. They attacked the fort or the camp. It was called Camp Rankin at that time. They attacked it. The commanding officer there ordered the men to fire, I think it was 1/3 charges in the Napoleons and the howitzers, and the mountain howitzers.
yeah.
Basically,
We'll try and get that
intentionally
back together.
short distancing the rounds. So that way they gave the natives a false sense of security of how close they could get. Because when you're shooting only a 30 year round, if you got a 12-pound mountain howitzer that's got a max range of 1,000 yards, you're not reaching out all that far. But then natives think, well, maybe we can get in closer and start, throwing some Hail Marys at the fort and hit some troops. And then all of a sudden, after they come in, he orders full charges loaded, and all of a sudden, boom, boom, they're blowing up amongst natives. none were injured, but they fell back out of range and then realized, hey, the entire town of Julesburg is undefended. Nobody's there. Let's just go raid it. And so, yeah, they sacked the town. And the way they found the campsite where they'd been at when the soldiers finally showed up from Fort Laramie and other areas in support was they followed the trails of flour and corn from the sacks that they were hauling off that had torn open. And that's how they found the village. And like I said, by that time, they'd packed up and moved north to Rush Creek.
Okay.
Two things that I find that we view as so important in, and they are technically, but we view them as so important in Western history that don't hardly ever get used. Forts and Gatling guns.
That's right. The Gatling gun was definitely.
Yeah, Gatling guns don't get a lot of use.
Like once or twice.
Yeah, they used a Gatling gun supposedly up at Little Bighorn, at Wounded Knee.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Gatling gun involved there. There was also a Mountain Hotchkiss, which was the first breech loading cannon that the U.S. adopted in 1876 and 77 to replace 12-pound Mountain Howitzer.
You told me about a fight where they used the Gatling gun to gauge the distance, and the Indians just hid in the trench under a trench.
Oh, no, it wasn't to gauge distance. So that was during the 1874 Red River War. The Army come across a bunch of Cheyennes. The Cheyennes fell back into a cave. I can't even remember the name of the battle. Doug Dukes, if you're there, you can probably remind me of which one this was. But it was a fight, and they set up a Gatling gun because every time the troops would get close to this little cave, they'd start receiving fire, and they knew they couldn't go in and get them out without losing troops. So they stepped back with a Gatling gun and just started cranking rounds, and I think the distance was 400 yards. And so they'd crank a bunch of rounds off of the Gatling gun, send troops in, they'd start firing back. They hit them with the Gatling gun again, send troops in. And this went on until about dark, and then sometime during the night, the people that were in there got up and left. But when the soldiers went in the next day to see if they could find anything, wasn't even a drop of blood in the cave. They hit nothing.
Oh, wow.
They dumped tons and tons of ammunition out of these Gatling guns. I think they had one or two with them on that campaign. The Gatling gun was something that was kind of like those big cannons. It was heavy to move around, slowed them down. Custer had the opportunity to take 2 Gatling guns with him. I think it was 2. He turned them down. If he'd taken with him, he would have survived Little Bighorn because he'd got there too late to run into anybody. They'd have been long gone by then. That's how much they slow them down. And the guns that Custer turned away aren't your 45-70 Gatling gun. They are the I think it was the 1-inch bore Gatling, which
oh, wow.
is a 6-barrel gun. It did not feed from a magazine. It had a hopper on the side. So if you've seen some of them World War II anti-air guns where they've kind of got like a hopper system on them, you just throw the ammunition in the hopper. That's how they're doing that. They're just taking a wad of ammunition, dumping it in this hopper and cranking it. But
so being a 1-inch bore, were those explosive cartridges as well?
No, they're just big, solid chunks of lead.
Just big, solid chunks of lead? Okay.
So you said those
I know
were
the
made by
military did
Hotchkiss?
practice with some explosive rounds, but I have not been able to find any information on that particular round for that particular Gatling gun. It was the model 1869 Gatling.
What did you say, Madras? You
I said, did you say those were made by Hotchkiss?
The breech loading cannon was made by Hotchkiss.
Okay.
And that was a European design.
Colt made the Gatling guns.
Okay,
yeah,
I
Colt
couldn't remember.
Gatling
Okay.
guns by this point in time.
Yeah.
So when they say that the Walker revolver was the biggest revolver Colt ever made, no, it wasn't. It was a Gatling.
Fair enough, yeah.
I still get. He still got. They hold. I think they were more powerful than the 500 Smith and Wesson, so Colt still holds the record.
We should all chip in and get one of those and do it.
You can get a reproduction Gatling gun fully functional for about $50,000 was the last time I looked at the price.
Yeah,
it's going to take a while.
And a 4-year wait period.
But I want an
We can start
original.
selling a few India-made muskets. We could probably get it together.
Oh, gosh, that's what to do, guys.
Tell Caleb to start saving his money.
Yep.
Poor
Ethan,
him.
by the way, Ethan's charging his phone. He'll be back. He said he has dibs on the wheel lock question, wherever that is. Sorry, guys, I haven't got to all your questions and stuff. Also, remind me, Brandon Birch, to come back to that Smith & Wesson question when Ethan gets back. But, Hardy, I'm going to try to start cycling through some of these, what you guys want to talk about. Something to maybe talk about, Hardy says, what could the manufacturers do to make us buy more? Should Kibler make a Hawken? Should Pedersoli lower prices? Standardized part sizes? What do we, the consumer, want? You guys got any thoughts on that?
Oh, standardizing of parts. That's interesting.
They're fairly close to standardizations.
Yeah.
I mean, they're close enough you can hand fit things and not need a whole bunch of work. My biggest would be price. I think that the prices need to go down on some of these guns. Some of them are fairly simple and they're going for outrageous amounts of money.
Pedersoli has gone insane.
Would 100%.
Yeah, they've lost their minds.
Pieta has gone insane on some of their stuff too.
Yeah.
One
Well,
thing,
Pieta got drunk apparently, and they just let all their people drink while they're working. That's the only thing I can make sense of.
one thing that was like really hard for me to come to terms with was paying essentially the same price for an antiquated firearm that I would pay for like an AR or, you know, some good pistols or, you know, modern stuff.
There's a bolt operated 50 BMG that you can get for less than a Pedersoli Sharps. Or not Sharps. It's their what was the one that they had? I think it was the Brown Vest. It's only like a $1,600
They
gun.
ain't hand fitting them.
Nah.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, you know, these aren't handmade rifles. Like,
No.
you know,
And then they throw these nasty laser engravings on them for all the import crap. So, yeah.
like if I'm gonna pay
I think Kibler's.
$4,000, I want to get like a Kentucky long rifle that's handmade, or you know, a Tennessee rifle. You know, just something that's like.
How much are you
Not
going to
I
spend?
would love to see Kibler get their guns around $750. If they could do that, oh my God, they would sell out.
For what they are, I don't know if that's possible.
I don't think so either. You have to realize too, they're probably the kind of people who would rather keep the lower selling, because then you have to expand everything else just to fill in fills.
I really feel like a Kibler kit at $1,100, give or take, maybe a little more. I haven't had taxes. Is a pretty good deal considering that same rifle made in Italy is going to cost you $1,800.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a much nicer rifle, the Kibler.
And yeah,
Much nicer.
I was about to say, you just experienced one, Snapper. You know what I'm talking about.
Let's just say I've been in love.
But as
I
far
really
as
like them.
Kibler could probably make some money making a Hawken, but this isn't the day of Jeremiah Johnson anymore. I feel like people are probably getting over the Hawken fever, hopefully after 40 years. And I think that if he comes out with what he's talking about, a Fowler or a smoothbore or a trade gun, I think he'll do better.
Trade gun.
I mean, maybe
Trade gun would be a good
an
one.
That would
authentic
be a really
Hawken
good one.
would make him a lot of money, but I think just some people are just tired of it in the community, to be quite honest.
It'd be neat for him to go off and do some just outrageously strange guns, like a Ferguson, or just the stuff you never see now that you have to build yourself just to even look at.
Yeah.
Really rare stuff. That'd be kind of fun.
I'm all about the rare oddity kind of weapons from that time period.
Yeah.
The Hawken, it was my first. I don't even know why I mentioned this. Last of the Mohicans. That's what got me started on black powder firearms.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know why that slipped my mind. But the Hawken, that was my first muzzle loader. That was my first firearm. And it burned up in a house fire, but I have like a replacement. So, but the nostalgia is just not there. It's not like a smoothbore musket. Like it's just not the same, you know. I don't know if it's because of the wood furniture or I don't know.
My big one is the Kibler, though. It has the look. It has the feel of an original. That's what I
The
just
thing
blew me
about
away.
the Southern Mountain Rifle is it's not the fancy, right? It's not got all the brass and stuff, but it has the peak of the flintlock, because that Southern Mountain Rifle is like 1800 through 1830. It's like, this is the peak of how good can we make this for east of the Mississippi. It's not so good out here because it's not going to kill a buffalo, but for squirrel hunting, oh, you just can't beat it.
There's not many guns today that you could sit down if you didn't know guns, you didn't know guns that much, but you just had to pick up an original and smell it and look at it and feel it. Yeah, I think you could hide pibblers in that, and somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about or know what they're really doing, they'll look at it and think that that is an original. It feels the same. It has that same quality, heft to weight to it, but yet a little bit of craftsman part thrown into it. It feels, it doesn't look cheesy. It doesn't feel cheesy. It doesn't feel like they made it as fast as they possibly could to get it out. And, you know, all the lock parts are curved, real nice and pretty. And it just has that feel, that honest feel of what a good gun would be.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's one of the few guns that's new that I've ever picked up and go, wow, this actually reminds me a lot of an original. Just the feel of it.
So that you're back, Ethan. Before I forget this, just moving on. He's heard all these questions, but Brandon Birch said random question for Ethan. I purchased a Model 3 New Frontier Smith & Wesson in 3844, and I was reading in a pinch you can use 38 Smith & Wesson. What are you guys' thoughts on that? I know that 3844 is an unusual cartridge similar to the Nagant and round where the projectile is seated deep into the brass, but the dimensions are very similar to 38 Smith. Are you there, Ethan? Ethan.
He heard the question and just turned his mic off.
He did. We'll come back to it. Carrie Sotomayor said, got my Colt Bible today. Very good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Doug Duke said Carbine and Lance by Nye. They do cover some of the Texas Indian Wars because that's where the Indians and soldiers ended up. Quick question. This will be more for Duke. I feel like Lockbars 54 said, hello. Question, which Sharps rifles had ramrods?
So the infantry rifles had a cleaning rod. And then the Sharps Gimmers had basically a Hawken style ramrod stuck underneath them.
So what about the paper cutter full length rifles?
Yeah, that would be the infantry. They had a cleaning rod.
Okay. Obviously not a ramrod because you're loading in the back.
The Sharps bullet is not designed to be loaded from the front. It's designed to be loaded from the back.
Hardy said, Locks said in Frank Seller's book, it has a few Sharps customized with somewhat Hawken style force. Yeah, that's the Gimmer. That's what not all of them are Gimmers, obviously, but that's what he was just talking about. So scrolling down through here, quick question, and we can run this around by all of us while we're waiting for Ethan. What are you guys' thoughts on Sharps rifles? Madras, you have anything on Sharps? You have any ideas, thoughts?
Well, talking about historically, I think it was a great advancement. I think it definitely contributed to the Civil War in the North and all that. I would love to own one and either reproduction or original, and just add that to my collection of black powder firearms. But yeah, I've not actually handled one in person, unfortunately.
Go ahead, Duke. I know your thoughts are, but go ahead.
Yeah, the Sharps, that was one of the best designs ever. Because once you went from the black powder era to the cartridge era, really it's the same thing. They're still using black powder. Once you make that transition into the cartridge era, the Sharps is one of the easiest guns to convert. You just go in, you mill out the vent hole from the cap down, put a firing pin in there, cut a chamber for the cartridge in the back, and you're ready to fire, and put an extractor in it. You're ready to start shooting. It's a really easy conversion.
Got any thoughts?
Easier.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to say.
Even easier than converting the trapdoors to the trap.
Technically, yes, absolutely. So the rolling block was easier to convert too, but as far as from rimfire, split breech. But you got any thoughts on Sharps, Snap?
Oh, me? Well, It doesn't have Colt on it, so no. Actually, yeah, I like them a lot. I think they're great guns. Dude pretty much said everything there is. It's a great gun all the way around. You got a nice heavy barrel. You got a nice receiver that would probably take anything, realistically. And once you convert it to brass to cartridges, I mean, it seems more like it was made to be more of a cartridge gun than it was a black powder gun. Yeah. It just fits the cartridge gun far better. I mean, it's still great both ways, right? But it seemed like it was a little bit ahead of its time, and it fit in perfectly right where it came out. Yeah, I like them. It'd be kind of cool to have one of those Quigley Sharps, but just for looks, I'm not a big fan of movie guns. Just to shoot once or twice.
Because the Sharps is what they would use for competition shooting, wasn't it? Like a lot.
Yeah.
That's
They
Isn't
did.
the Sharps what they used in the what was the name of that
They
fight?
did it in the
The
Creedmoor
Deadly
matches.
Walls?
They did it in the Creedmoor matches, but not necessarily in the military style ones. Here's what I will say. I have a really toss-up historically. There's 2 single-shot rifles, and this is going to surprise some people what I'm going to say, that come at the very top, the tippy top of what a single-shot rifle should be. A Sharps and a Martini Henry. And
Wow.
and those 2 guns, the Sharps is the king of the Buffalo guns, of the big bore Buffalo Wild West America. It handles a heavy cartridge. And the Martini Henry is probably the king of the military single shot rifles. That all being said, I see why there's not a major adoption of Sharps rifles all over the world at any point for a military. They cost $30 to $35 a piece to make. A trapdoor costs $5.
Yeah.
And Martini Henry, the British had the money, and you know the history of that better than I do, but the action's stronger. It takes a bigger cartridge. The Martini Henry, we would have adopted it if we would have adopted the Peabody in 1865 when they thought about doing it, when the Laidley Board thought about doing it. I believe we would have had it. But we just never, the United States government from about 1865 up to about 1888 never had the money to pull that off. What they did do with their money was great because compared to the Sharps, the trapdoor is actually cheaper, more simple, and more rapid fire because it has ejection. However, it shows out on the western frontier on the buffalo hunts. A lot of guys start out with 50, 70 trapdoors that are cut down Bannerman, something cheap. And first thing they do when they upgrade, what do? They go get a 50-90 Sharps. So I think there's a lot more nuance as to what the gun's for. But I think as far as civilian stuff, which is really what I like the most, the Sharps' history is very hard to beat. Ethan's back. Let's see what he's got. Can you hear us, Ethan?
Yep, I'm back. Did you answer the wheel-lock question yet?
No, I've been saving it for you. But did you hear
Okay.
my question from Brandon Birch first about the 38-44 and 38 Smith & Wesson?
Yeah, so I don't know a whole lot about it, but from what I do know, that you can shoot 38 Smith & Wesson out of 38-44. But that's what I've heard. I would do some more research. No, going to the wheel lock. I think the question was, where's the wheel lock? Thanksgiving has come and gone. So about that.
I didn't even see that question.
Yeah, so about the wheel lock. Here's the deal. I had that gun, and Garrett can vouch for me, 99% of the way done. I had the wood finished. I had the lock done. I had the lock set into the stock, and I had ran into some major hurdles in that gun, and I had to learn some lessons. And one of the main things I learned was that I miscalculated something. I went and I thought that the breech nail screwed into a certain part of the lock, and I inlet the lock too deep. So once I figured out that I'd done this wrong, I went ahead and I basically engineered my own little way of making it work with a plunger and everything. Had it all set in the gun. The trigger broke whenever I was trying to reshape it, because you got to kind of shape it because once again, I inlet the lock too deep. And the trigger is actually a pretty intricate part of that system. It has to be just perfect. And I had made a new trigger. Took like a week and a half just to get it right. I tested it out. I made a video of me testing out the lock. And I was within hours of having the gun done and ready to make a video for Thanksgiving. And the trigger snapped on me. And I basically put it down. I was like, we're just going to take a break from this for a while. I'm going to finish it again. And a matter of fact, you may be seeing another wheel lock showing up on the channel. It's already completed here in the next few weeks. It's actually made by Uberti. I didn't know Uberti made wheel locks back in the day, but evidently they did. and it's actually a pretty good representation of a Germanic wheel lock.
Did
And
you
I've
pick
also
that
got-
one up you sent me pictures of?
Maybe.
Ethan? Ethan?
Yes. I'm currently trying to win it, but
Nice.
I think I'm going to, because I'm bidding pretty high on it. But I actually called the rifle shop later on when I went to go pay for some more orders from them, and the guy there, he asked me, he's like, "So how's the wheel lock going?" I said, "Well, if we're going to be honest, I kind of messed up on it." And he goes, "Yeah, I figured you were going to," but he said, "I thought about telling you about it, but he's like, at the same time, I knew you really wanted to build these guns," and he's like, "I'd rather you get a very hard gun to start on and practice on that's not a whole lot of money versus going and buying something that's like $1,400 and messing that up." So he's like, "Did you learn anything?" I'm like, "Yeah, I learned a lot." He's like, "Good." So that's where I'm at now. So now I'm knowing how these kits are going together. It's going to go a lot easier from now on. But it took me 3 months to build that wheel lock, because that's what he said. He's like, pistol locks are the hardest, and he's like, wheel lock pistols are the hardest pistol locks to make. And it took me 3 months to build that lock, and I tried building a rifle shop flintlock mechanism, and it took 3 days, and they weren't even full days. So yeah, we'll probably have 2 Germanic wheel lock pistols by Thanksgiving, and either a Dutch wheel lock Fowler or the paddle butt wheel lock, because those both are going to be they're going in the mail tomorrow.
Should have just said the dog ate your pistol.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping you were going to just say. He's like, "Oh, the dog ate it. Darn."
Yeah. Jeremiah ate it.
Jeremiah ate it.
Oh, Gray Pilgrim said Sharps. I have both. Sharps is better. Sharps all day. Sharpshooter 74 said, "Why didn't the U.S. government adopt the 74 Sharps that was turned out in 72 instead of the 73 trapdoor?"
It's expensive.
Like we just discussed,
Expensive.
it's actually in 73, the Sharps was $35 a piece for the government, and the non-converted actual 73s, when they started making them all new out of parts, cost them like $10.50. And they didn't have any money. And when you think about it, what makes the Sharps great? Has great sights, long-range, heavy-duty octagon barrel. Well, that lever action is a little complicated, maybe, but to build, but it's good stuff. The Spencer was basically built on what was the Sharps action. But what does that gain you in battle?
I know what that heavy barrel is going to make you not gain.
It would probably, if you set out a sniper squad or something, a sharpshooter squad. Obviously, they used them in the Civil War for that.
Yep.
But for overall adoption, you don't want a heavy barrel. And then you're not going to put finicky, like really super good sights on there until the Buffington comes along. So, you kind of lose the advantage, in my opinion.
The Sharps does eject.
It does, but it doesn't eject to the extent that they demanded that trapdoor eject. Like, they want that trapdoor shell to come out there, and they want it 10 feet behind you. And you don't have to hit nothing hard. Just flip the door open. So that's how it's supposed to do. Whereas the trapdoor, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the Sharps will eject if you throw the lever hard enough, right?
Well, some of them earlier ones said that when that block dropped, it hit that hard enough to kick it flying out. And that one that I'm working on, the IAB, when we was out shooting it, I just pushed that lever down, and that thing would come flying right on out of there.
Because you see in the actual tests, the Laidley board and the actual 1872 and 73 tests, they gave the same excuse for the Sharps that they did for the rolling block, no ejection. That was literally, they timed it and the rate of fire was slower. Now, I'm not saying you're probably right, especially later on. I'm sure they did come out with that. Why wouldn't you? But during the test, it was brought up as an issue. Now, the Sharps, and both the Sharps and the rolling block shot tighter groups. That was no joke. But they're like, do we really care if you shoot a 3 or 4 inch group at 100 yards or a 2 or 3 inch group at 100 yards?
I'll tell you that rolling block is not as comfortable to shoot as a trapdoor. Just because of the drop in the stock. is a little much.
The prone position, the rolling block is superior.
Really?
To what?
Yeah, the rolling block, because when you're shooting in the prone position on the ground, you just cog it, and you load it right there in front of you. That trapdoor, you flip it up, and then you got to look down to shove the cartridge in there. With the sharps, you got to turn it sideways to get the lever open.
It would be, but the main issue they had with that rolling block was before Erskine Allen got a hold of it and changed the internals, you were on full cock.
Yeah.
As soon as you loaded it, there was no way to go to half cock to load it. No safety. Now, Erskine Allen changed it a little bit in the 1870s, but that was their main concern was Johnny Soldier here is going to shoot his buddy in the back every time he goes to load because they're soldiers and anything bad that can happen will happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I don't have any hatred for any of them. A lot of people hate the trapdoor, but I don't have any hatred for any of them. I see why each one has its. The rolling block was fairly cheap to make. Other countries all over the world, it was the AK-47 of its day. Went all over the world. Every
Also,
caliber
they
you
kept
could think
Remington
of.
arms from closing.
Yeah, and it did. It just wasn't what the United States was looking for because cheap as it wasn't as cheap as cutting the back of the 1863 out and putting a piece of steel in it.
Yep.
Yep.
You got any thoughts, Madras? I know you're a Martini Henry guy, so you're in a whole
Yeah.
different world. The Martini Henry's a beast all to itself.
He's looking
It
down
is.
on us plebs.
Yeah. I was like, only if you guys had adopted the Martini, you would have been successful. No, you brought up a good point about shooting in the prone with a trapdoor versus the rolling block. And I was sitting there thinking, with the Martini Henry, that would be difficult to do. You'd have to flip it sideways, undo the breech, or the lever, and then reload. Versus the trapdoor, where you can sit there in the prone, flip up the breech, and reload faster. But
Yeah.
There's one thing I've noticed though in shooting trapdoors is if you flip the door open and that gun is perfectly horizontal.
Yep.
A lot of times that thing will come in, turn backwards, and fall right back into the
Yep.
action.
So I did
some.
some.
It happens to me when it hits my shoulder or my hat.
Yeah,
That's
it's
when
got to
it
be
So-
pointed muzzle up
I
or
did-
muzzle down to really effectively.
Well, it's
So-
the rules say go muzzle down if you can.
Yep.
That's
Gravity's
that's
your
the
friend.
drill. Even it a little bit, but keep your hat brim out of the way. That's the main thing.
yeah,
I did quite a bit of shooting from the prone the other day, practicing for the Cabin Fever Challenge. And honestly, the worst obstacle for me, because I was being pretty gentle with raising the door up, so it was staying up. My biggest obstacle was the cartridge box. Because, yeah, like I said, you lay down, that cartridge box flops over, and all your rounds go flying out.
Forgot about that. We timed you, and I don't remember what it was, but from the prone, you were absolutely rapid firing that door from the prone.
I didn't have a problem with it from the prone because all I'd have to do is, like I said, gently open that trap, the breech open, let it sit there, and then grab my cartridge, set it into the breech, and then basically just give it a little push into the chamber and lock it, and we're ready to go.
We're talking better than 30 rounds a minute from the prone, probably.
It's pretty quick.
Like
that's
around every 2 seconds.
That's quite a bit.
that's very
I
quick.
forgot about that.
But yeah, the whole cartridge box thing, there's a reason why they abandoned them
Yep.
within a few years and went to, because I think they had McKeevers for the 5070, if I remember right. I know they had another modified pouch. I can't remember what the heck it was called. But yeah, they got away from the old Civil War box. And there's a reason why at Wagon Box they dumped rounds into this hat.
I got to remember, was it 1,700 or 2,700 rounds they got off there?
At Wagon Box, they had 7,000 in reserve.
Yeah, but they got over 1,000 fired.
Yeah, they fired a lot. I don't think it talks about it in the Red Cloud books.
So what you're saying for the Cabin Fever Challenge, I then you have 5 rounds in my pocket for the standing, and then just have the rest of them in my Forager's cap on the ground.
They
Indeed.
literally piled them on the ground or piled them in their hats at Wagon Box Fight.
That's what I'm gonna do, because that cartridge
He
box
got
is a pain.
Madras has something here.
Yeah, okay, so we were talking about US cartridge boxes, and I hated this, I think they call it the Pattern 71 cartridge box and equipment with the British, but it was the same deal where it was, just a leather box. But the thing I found out is, like you were saying earlier, is where they just dump all over the ground. What
Yeah.
I did like is they had a dump pouch where you could put extra cases in or extra bullet or rounds in. And for some reason, I just like this a lot better. And I don't know. I guess that, I mean, is an antiquated system that they were using with cartridges, but
Yeah.
yeah, I wish they had had some sort of bandolier or something that would have been easier to handle.
And the
Yep.
joys of your ammo being 50 yards behind you.
Yeah, that didn't help either.
Nothing
Vaquero
worse.
Joel said, "What book are you getting your cartridge box info from?" I was doing the Indian Wars cartridge box or cartridge pouches, boxes, and carbine boots by Stephen Dorsey. I don't know what Duke was reading exactly.
Packing Iron was the one that I had.
Yeah. Let's see, going through here.
Schlot Shula says the New York National Guard did adopt the Peabody. He says he has a musketry manual for them. So basically the Martini Henry, roughly.
No, well, it's got a hammer. It's not the same, but if the whole United States had adopted it in '65,
it would have eventually evolved into the Martini Henry.
We would have been looking at Martini Henrys, but Martini Henry is an expensive dude compared to putting a trapdoor on a conversion.
Do you know how much they would have cost, like, by chance?
Which ones, the Peabodys?
No, the Martini Henry.
Well, when I haven't got to that part, obviously, but my study on the trapdoor has took me through the 65 Peabodys, and Providence Tool Company wanted to build them themselves, and they wanted $25. Well, it was between $25 and $30. And the Laidley board people were like, well, we could buy a license from you for like $8 or whatever it was per rifle.
Yeah.
And they're like, we just bought the license from Peabody. Providence, we got to make these to make some money. And that was when they asked Erskine Allen, how much would it cost to convert these rimfires? They have $5 flat a piece. They bought the entire patent off of him for $1. They had to bring in a little bit of machinery. It took some time to make, but it was flat out $5 a piece to convert that first 5,000. And so they were like, well, we can arm a quarter of our military with this right now, or with a Peabody right now, or we can start working on arming the whole thing with trapdoors and conversions. And so it seemed to me like it made more sense than a lot of people give them credit for. Let's put it that way.
Real quick, what is that noise? You guys can hear it, right?
I'm going to pull a Paul Harrell. I'm going to pull a Paul Harrell right here. I'm going to say, so we're out here by the highway today. Please bear with the sounds of traffic going by.
Okay.
All right. I'm going through here looking for more questions here, what people want to talk about. Okay. So Sharpshooter said, want to talk about the legendary shot Billy Dixon pulled off June 27th, 1874. Go Duke!
Yeah, so Billy Dixon had, I think he had a 44-77 because they talk about him buying a 44 caliber Sharps round barrel. That was a loud one. Anyway,
just mute till you're ready to talk, Ethan.
Oh, I'm trying to cover him up right now.
Well, you can just mute your microphone until you're ready to say something.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, so he had a 44, and wagon box fight has been going on for a while. The natives were not making any progress.
Adobe walls.
Yeah, it was Adobe walls. And weren't making much progress, and so there was 3 of them sitting up on a hill about 1,500 yards away. And if you've seen pictures of this hill, it's actually they're on the edge of a steep cut bank. And I've got a friend that went down there and had a picture of him taken from the Adobe Walls site while he's up there on that hill, and he is tiny. And so Billy Dixon knew his rifle wouldn't quite reach out that far. And so there was another guy there that had a big 50, a 50-70, questionable if it'll reach out quite that far, but a 5090 would. And 5090 and 5100, which was the same case, they just packed a little more powder in it. One of the guys there he just calls it a big 50 sharps. That's what a lot of them were called, was the big 50s. He grabs that, he takes the shot, and he sees the bullet hit the berm. And realized, hey, I need to raise up. He fires, doesn't see an impact, lowers back down a little bit, fires. And one of the three natives that are sitting there, fell off of his horse. And so that kind of really got the natives there to thinking, because they're like, holy Moses, how did this guy accomplish that? And I guess the hole going out the guy's back, something about the way he was hit. The natives are sitting there talking. They said, well, I guess the whites now have a gun. They can fire a bullet and it turns around, comes back and hits them in the back. They probably didn't hear that third shot. They probably heard the first shot or the second shot go over their heads. And then all of a sudden, boom, this guy's hit. And so after that, they called off the attack because the medicine man,
heat-seeking missiles.
Yeah.
the medicine man that was there, his name was, after that was called Isatai. I'm not going to translate what that is because we're on Garrett's channel, and so I don't want his mother after. But you can look it up. It's not a very polite name. But he had told him, the day before that, his little magic would keep the bullets from hitting them, and then they took quite a few losses in this fight. And so after Billy Dixon shot, they said, we've had enough of that. And they got up and left. But you see that happen a couple times when fights, is they'll have a little thing. They'll do their ritual and say the bullets won't hit them. And then either, it doesn't work, or in the one case up in Wyoming, as they said, don't worry, the bullets aren't going to hit you. And then the soldiers drew their sabers and everybody left the field.
We didn't plan for that. Doug Dukes, sorry guys, I'm about an hour behind on these comments, but if you're just hanging out, I'm catching up. But Doug Dukes said Fort Lancaster in Texas was attacked. That's one I didn't know about. Complex Patriot, you got great love seeing youngins who care about history. Thanks. Garrett, Gray Pilgrim said, Garrett, when we expect the next Trapdoor episode? I got to bring two people in for it because we're reenacting, hopefully if it works out, a very important scene in the life of the 1866 Trapdoor. And I need Ethan and I need Duke, and hopefully we all converge here in March.
Because we can't get Caleb to put on that blue uniform. He just won't do it.
He's gonna be a Woodhawk. He ain't gonna be no soldier.
Well, you got to get that Spencer up to where it can shoot center fire, because he's got to run the Spencer.
Yeah. We'll have several 66s. Might have 3 66s by the time you get here. But we want to do that, and I want to do it right. So hopefully it all comes out mid to late March. After that, it'll get a lot quicker because I don't have to wait on Ethan to get back between episodes. But that's going to be a big episode because we got to cover the military, the building of it, the military use of it at the hayfield and wagon box. We got to cover Buffalo Bill using it. We got that gun is going to have a ton of exciting war history. We got to cover the Franco-Prussian War use. It's going to be It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a big video.
I need to ask you, when do you want me to come out so we can film that?
Well, after Ethan gets back in mid-March, hopefully.
Okay.
Complex Patriot. I've been shooting.
I'll be back. Sorry, I'll be back early March. So, yeah, there you go.
Oh, sorry. I've been shooting a lot of Old West cartridge revolvers and rifles and want to get started with muzzle loading and cap and ball. Any advice for starting muzzle loading and cap and ball? Madrash, you got any advice for starting muzzle loading or cap and ball?
So for muzzle loading, I would start with a big caliber. I think let's say the Longland is what, 69 caliber. So it's easy, it's common to find. You can cast your own if you want. Powder's usually pretty easy to find. Whenever I couldn't find real black powder, I was able to substitute with
Don't say it. Oh, he said it.
No, he said it on this channel. That was a bad word here.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
That's sacrilege.
You got to get into the making of your own black powder. It's so simple. It's so easy. It's fun.
So yeah, now that I'm older and I kind of want to take different like traditional aspect of it, I want to make my own black powder.
And we've gotten to the point now we can make better than what you can buy easily. So
Toilet paper makes the best black powder.
we're gonna have to
Yeah.
like do a big get together and do a video on that. But that's what I would do. And then flints, I mean, they're easy to get a hold of online. So it was just easy for me to get into. It's very economical, I feel like. So yeah, I'd find a large caliber that you can use, because you can also use that musket as a since it's smoothbore, you could use it as a makeshift shotgun if you wanted, and kind of try that out.
Duke, you
Yeah,
got
if
anything
you
starting with, or yeah, Snapper, anything else starting with cap and ball?
oh, what? Say it again.
Well, he asked about muzzle loading and cap and ball, and I think Madras gave a good answer for the muzzle loading. I mean, if you wanted a rifle, you could start with like a cheap Hawken or something if you wanted.
Mhm.
Yeah,
but
those
he's
are-
talking about flintlocks. Yeah, a good big smoothbore flintlock's a pretty good way to go.
It is, just because of the fact that it's cheap to shoot. Once you have everything, and especially if you're making your own powder, it's next to nothing to shoot, especially these days. That's another reason why I love the cap and ball. You can still make caps. It's a pain in the butt, though. Like, it's an absolute pain in the butt. But you can still make caps. You can still do that whole thing if you want to. The one upside to the caps is they can be more less issues with it going off. You know, you're a little bit more waterproof than what you can get out of a flintlock. But yeah, I mean, it kind of is what it is. That's kind of the main reason why I started loving these, is just because, you know, you just got to make your powder, get your lead, and you're pretty much good to go. Everything else is simple. It's simple to shoot, simple to do, especially in days like today when it's hard to find ammunition. It's hard to find anything. So definitely a good thing to do. Sorry, I wasn't paying all that much attention. My wife was talking to me a while ago.
Sorry. Yeah. Shot Shula had said we were talking back about what we can do for something Hardy mentioned, what makes the repo market better. Shot Shula said, I'd like to see some more European firearms reproduced. I know Arsa is making an Adams if they ever get to it, but there are lots of others. The Rindle, maybe, or the Wanzel. I don't know that one. But yeah, I agree. So let's see a lot more variety than just, I will agree with you 100% there. Too many Colts, and I mean, I love Colts, don't get me wrong, but they're just Colts and Remingtons. Let's get some other stuff out here.
Yeah. Good point. It is true.
Whitney copy, not the brass frame. I want a steel frame Whitney.
There you go.
That would be cool. Does anybody actually make a copy of a Whitney?
Well, technically, the Spiller and Burr is the brass frame copy of the Whitney.
Yeah, but it's brass.
Yeah, but it's Confederate brass, but it's not the actual Whitney, obviously.
Yeah, right.
Because that one, if they make it the same way that Whitney, when I handled that one that you guys had out there, I want to shoot that one at some point, because that is actually very comfortable.
We don't have a Whitney.
Or Spiller and Burr.
Spiller and Burr. Oh, yeah, you just mean Spiller and Burr, but steel frame? Yeah.
Yeah.
They fit the hand beautifully.
Yeah.
Hey, Garrett.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ethan.
Garrett, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Hey, I'm going to be on here for a little bit longer. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hello, Ethan.
Yeah, I'll be on here for a little bit longer. Yeah, I'm probably going to call it, because the only outlet I have other than my somewhat noisy room with my roommates is out here back. And yeah, there's no outlets back here, and it's very noisy out front. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'll be on here for a little bit longer until my phone dies.
All right.
again.
Well, if you have something to say, pipe up, because I can visually see your thing, your microphone. But just let me know. Just holler. Okay. But anyway, what were we saying? Yeah. It'd be interesting to see even the cartridge guns. Does anybody make a reproduction Martini Henry yet, or is it?
So I was gonna say that I don't think so, because IMA found that huge cache in Kathmandu.
I wish they were still cheap like they used to be when they found that cache.
I am so.
If I had a time
glad-
machine, that's one of the first things I'm going back to do is buying a couple of those.
Yes, I am so glad that we got ours when they first came out for like $600, I think.
I wished I'd
And
have
I-
bought an M1 Grand when they were $600.
no
Man, I
kidding.
know.
Jeez, yeah.
Yeah. How much are those going for now?
I know somebody who
Upwards of
did that once.
2,000.
1,000.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's way out of my price range. So I think with them being flooded in the market right now,
Oh, yep.
it'd be cool if they would do a reproduction because then I
My
would.
phone is just about to die.
All right, we'll see you.
Yeah.
Bye, Ethan.
So
Yeah.
I might have to hop off here. All right.
Okay.
See you later.
All right, bye.
If they did do a reproduction and if it was reasonably priced, I would totally want to do like a torture video on it, just to see what it could handle.
Yep.
That'd be fun.
Carrie said get Kibler to build a Baker rifle. That somebody needs to, but I don't know if Kibler would because it's not. Well, maybe he would because it's not American, but I don't know. He seems to be more into the folksy guns. But yeah, a Baker. Nobody makes a good Baker. It's kind of interesting. Even the India-made ones aren't rifled, so
Yeah,
that's
that makes
kind
them
of
extra explosive.
yeah.
You could always line it. You could always try to line one of those somehow.
Yeah.
Sure, it's possible.
The rifle shop. If you order the kits, you can get one from the rifle shop, but it's gonna be a task.
The
Now,
one I'd like to see reproduced is a Gallagher conversion. I think that's a Gallagher, the one you push the lever down, the whole barrel slides forward and tips.
are you sure that's not the Sharps and Hankins?
I want to say it's a Gallagher. There
It
was
probably
a
is.
too. Yeah, now I got to double check myself because I may have just made a boo boo.
Let's see here. Yeah, Gray Pilgrim said, yeah, the Czar's Taylor lives near him, has a Beaumont Adams original. Yeah, I know. I asked him the other day how much powder it held, and he said that he was only loading 30 grains, but that wasn't how much it holds. Obviously, he's not going to shoot it completely full. But I said, I'd really love to see just how much you can fit in that cylinder, just because I want to know.
Gallagher is the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of going through here looking for a few more. What do we want to talk about?
You guys want to hear something really kind of neat on the side, though? When we were at that Las Vegas Antique Arms Show, there's a YouTuber that most of us watch. I'm not going to put it out there, but he got a Colt single action Army that had gain twist rifling.
Mm-hmm.
Woo!
They didn't make those with gain twist rifling.
Is there somebody that sends us bullets?
Huh?
Is it somebody that sends us bullets?
I don't think so.
No. Does it start with a B?
Somebody that everybody here watches.
Does it start with an M or a B?
Neither.
Oh.
Starts with a C.
Do I know who this is?
You should.
Like, have I met them?
I don't think so through here, but they have a YouTube channel. A lot of people watch their stuff.
Okay.
Is it
It's
with
more
a
of one
K?
guy. You'll see. I don't want to give it away because, yeah, he showed it to me, but
No, because
What?
Snapper ain't going to be hanging out with anybody whose name starts with a K.
oh God, no. But let's just say that it was a 4440. I'm not going to give any information out more than this, just because
Okay.
he told me this. I saw it. I got to play with it, and I was like, they never made gain twist rifling in a single action Army, except for apparently the very, very first couple of the 4440s. So I'm extremely excited to see this thing shoot.
There's some really oddball ones out there that you don't see. There's the 44 Henry rimfire one.
Mhm.
I've seen one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was some other, and that was probably one of those experimental ones where they were still using that old style rifling.
Yeah, we believe that the barrel was probably cut down from like an 1860 Army or a 72 open top, like where they just used that part of the barrel, respun it down, and turned it on a lathe.
Or it
Because
could just
that's what
be
would make sense.
somebody you could order, like it's been said before. I think it was Dula said if you wanted to from Colt, you could order a single action Army with an 18-foot long barrel if you wanted to, if you paid for it. So you
That's
could
cool.
order a gain twist rifling. Yeah, I'm sure you could.
But this was supposed to be just because all my history of learning going through this, I've still never found anything ever mentioning a gain twist rifling in a single action Army.
But yeah,
So,
it's like how many Colts,
I hit the wall a little bit, especially getting to look at it and play with it.
how many oddball Colts have popped up over the years that
A lot.
It's like
Colt always did something strange.
Root Dragoon that popped up a few years ago.
That would have been cool if they'd have went with that.
Yeah, but the
That
18th
would have been cool.
Army came in, and then
Yeah.
and then there was the 3rd model Dragoon with the ratcheting lever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
The
also
ratcheting lever on a Dragoon would have been cool.
I also think that the Root Design guns had such a reputation for seizing, like worse than the Remingtons. Like they seize up fast. Even the one I have over here seizes up fast. I would have to think that with such a big round in that gun, you would probably seize up even faster. I mean, I may be wrong.
Kind of makes me want to think on the rifles, the Colt actual rifles.
Mhm.
How bad were they with fouling and seizing up? I personally have no idea.
Depends on how big the pin is, the center pin, how big you get that center pin, you know?
Yeah.
Just a quick question. Do y'all know of anybody that makes a reproduction Lamont pistol?
Yeah.
Pieta,
Okay.
Pieta
Pieta?
makes them.
Okay.
They're
Pieta.
pretty popular, really.
$1,600, I think, is what they're up to.
Okay. Well, that's a little too far.
They're one of those pistols that you think you really want, so you
Yep.
get your hands on one, and then you're like, it's kind of cool, but it's so big, it just doesn't handle very well. It's just, I thought I would love it. Don't get me wrong, I don't own one, but I've had one with me for like a year because it's squibs. And I thought I was gonna love it. I thought I was gonna love it. And
I gotta ask, Snapper, when are you ever gonna send Plowboy that fancy maple so that he can get his gun?
It's already in the mail. I sent it to him. He
Every
actually
video
is
he
supposed to be
makes,
there on the 2nd or the 1st or the 2nd. It's in the mail. It'll be there. That was my squib as well because he bought that Griswold and Gunnison replica, and I told him, I was like, I'll put the lean on it that my real Griswold and Gunnison has, and I was going to make a set of grips out of that. So he bought a bunch of it. I was like, dude, I only needed a little piece, so
Yeah.
I figured Plowboy. He was talking about that. I wish I had some money to buy a fancy, grips, and I was like, hey, you want some of this?
Yeah.
It's gonna look cool. I'm actually looking forward to it.
Sharpshooter 7. You guys still there? How about it does that to me every now and then. Sharpshooter 74 said, "Now, what's your thoughts on the controversial 5140 Sharps?" Go, Duke.
So the 5140 Sharps never existed. In Sharps, it was actually a Winchester round. Basically,
I know it existed in Sharps because what's his name? The Cimarron, not Cimarron. I've seen them fired by people that were pretty reputable.
yeah, there was some old 50 caliber Sharps that were converted, but they
I see what you're saying.
the round came out after the Sharps Rifle Company closed.
Got ya. Okay.
And it was developed. The military experimented with it. There was a Gatling gun that was chambered in it. Didn't go very far. And then it took off really in African big game hunting. Because by the time late 1890s are coming around, that's starting to really become a big thing. So yeah, it was kind of, I guess you could call it an elephant gun. It was a big game, dangerous game cartridge. And then I think it was the 450 Nitro, the 500 Nitro Express is essentially a 5140 in smoking.
Huh.
You have something on that, Madras?
Yeah, but I'm looking at. So I'm way out of my element on this one, but I'm looking at a picture of it, and that thing is huge.
The Cinnabar shoots one, and he said he only shot 2 shots because he never flinched on a gun in his life, and he developed a flinch in 2 shots.
600 grains. Man, if I could find one, I'd like to check it out. That'd be interesting.
I know that the like Duke was saying, the ones that were bored out to. I'm sorry, Duke. I thought you were saying they never were in a Sharp, but the ones that were bored out to actually take that tend to have broken stocks at the wrist.
Makes
Because
sense.
the cartridge hit the market in 84. Sharps Rifle Company closed in 81, but it supposedly there may have been a prototype Borchardt that was chambered in that round.
I'm sure the first person to order one is like, I want a gun that'll either break me or break itself.
And then never shot it and sold it right back.
Uh-huh.
Caesar said, "I want a Mississippi rifle for a long time." Yeah, it's kind of like I was with the, and you can get a few reproductions, but the Petter, I don't know. Maybe the Petter Sully is better than it used to be, but I wanted an 1803 Harper's Ferry. Well, we did for a long time, and the Navy arms or whatever, they weren't right. That most of them were in 58 caliber. So finally, when I wanted that gun and I wanted it right, and I wanted a good one. Actually, Caleb wanted it, but we wanted a good one. Finally, just broke down and had one, or bought one that was a custom build by Turkey Creek 1823. And I might be shooting that this weekend, and maybe that will be the video 2 weeks from now because I really need to get it done. But like historically, he got it right. Like the original ones, everybody calls them 54s. They were 53s. So you need a 52.5 ball. So it's a labor of love. Let's put it that way to make it right. And he did.
Misspoke on that one. It's not the 500 Nitro. It's the 500 Black Powder Express is what that cartridge is pretty much the same on.
Would it have just been called the 500 Express then?
Let's see. No, they call it the 500 Black Powder Express, but it was developed in the 1860s.
Yeah. Carrie says Shiloh claims that their rifles will handle smokeless loads they chamber for to pressures that the Ruger #1 can handle. I believe it.
Yeah, they do claim that. But the thing of it is on the Sharps is those breech blocks will wear out with time. They will spring. Even with black powder loads, they will spring after years and years of use. And the hotter it is, the faster that happens.
Shot Shula said, Madra, the problem with that Martin expense pouch is when you double time, they flop like crazy when they're full.
That is true, yeah. They do tend to do that.
Well, there's a reason why when the U.S. Army, them cartridge boxes that were on the sling, they go under the waist belt.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense, yeah.
I'm going all over the place. So if you don't do it under the waist belt, oh, they are a pain.
Yeah.
Antique Gunslinger said, Duke, where can I get leather kits, pouches, straps, belts, etc.?
Used to be a guy that made them, and he's gone out of business. He had a clicker die. In fact, I've got a couple of his kits. I got a pistol box, an 1860s pistol cartridge box. But he went out of business. That was on YouTube. You just order it. And then I got a couple other. I got a Walker holster kit from him that I proceeded to mess up royally because that was the first leather kit I put together. And then I got a couple for the pocket models. But yeah, I don't know if they're still on there. I think it's American Civil War kits. Let's see here. But I know that a lot of these stuff they dropped and they quit doing. No, they're still in business. So yeah, you can go. It's acwkits.com. That's one place you can get some stuff.
So on to the subject of what do you want to talk about? Space Art wants to talk about an Old West question. Besides the Indians, did any of the settlers in the Old West practice archery or use bows for hunting?
You see that mentioned amongst the New Mexican settlements down in New Mexico and some of them that come up here. But Louis Gerard talks about running across a Hispanic man with a bow and arrow. So, but I never seen any Anglo settlers coming through using them.
That's an interesting question. I've never thought of that.
I hadn't either.
Sharpshooter 74 said, Garrett, how would you like to do a review of a 74 Sharps and 5140? Well, I would do it. Would I like to do it? Oh, not something that's on my bucket list necessarily. I will say that if it kicks anything like that 480 grain round ball out of a brown vest with 200 grain 1F charge that Caleb shoots, I'd do it once or twice. And then I'd flinch for 2 years, and I would have to go back to 22s to get over my flinch and work my way back up again. That's exactly where I would be with it. I don't know. I bet Duke would sure love to review one. Let's let Duke review one.
No, as it is. In fact, I may have to go have surgery done on this thing at some point here pretty soon.
I kid you not. I shoot that brown bet. Caleb was doing the 200 grain charge in the India musket, by the way. You know, Bombay pipe bomb. He was doing a 200 grain charge with a 69 caliber round ball, which obviously it's not sealing the bore and giving you as much kick as a rifle would, but it's not a joke. And when he does a 1 ounce shot of 1 ounce of bird shot or swan shot with that 200 grain load, it's It's not something I enjoy. I'll put it that way. That's why I made a video where I shot his gun a few times one day. Then I was like, let's go out and do a smoothbore squirrel hunt with my 62 caliber with my trade gun. And everybody in that video was like, that's the most terrible flinch I've ever seen. And I'm like, yeah, it took me a year to get over it almost again. After Caleb can shoot that all day long and it don't bother him. But I'll admit, I can develop a flinch that I have to work out.
The fastest way I figured out to get past a flinch is go get you a box of Winchester AA and shoot them all day. And all of a sudden your flinch is gone because you got the loud bang, but not the kick.
Well, that was before I got my Southern Mountain Rifle, and after I got that, I can rehab that flinch pretty quick with that 36 and just 40 grains and a 36 round ball on a flintlock. It's like a few shots of that and I'm back. But before that, I was bad at flinching when I would shoot that gun.
Yeah, I got a flinch bad one time because guy I was shooting with, he had a 300 Win Mag. And it had a really good trigger in it. The thing was he didn't know anything about the trigger and didn't know that you could adjust it. When it came from the factory, it had about a 20-pound trigger pull. So you're sitting there looking through the scope, trying to pull on this trigger, and then all of a sudden it goes off, and I developed one heck of a flinch with that thing. And then he put a suppressor on it, had the trigger adjusted down to about a 3-pound trigger pull. Never had a flinch with it after.
Yeah, just a few questions here going down through here. How about a 1896 Winchester and 70-150?
Yeah, those were pretty sure those were over used in Africa as well.
And you guys may see this differently, but I will tell you there was a point where, and Caleb's mentioned this before, from about 20 to 28, I was like, it has to be the biggest bullet, has to be the longest rifle, has to be, the most kick. And then I realized all those guns, I don't use them for like anything. It's like, I don't hunt bear, so it's like a 30-30 will kill a deer. So
Yeah.
And that's when I found out I did more hunting squirrels. That's why I love that 36 myself, just because and that leads into this other question, Antique Gunslinger. How's the Kibler Southern Mountain Rifle accuracy, fouling, different calibers? On the Southern Mountain, now I've shot Kibler's Woods Runner in the 50, and I've shot my 36, and I've handled a 45 in Southern Mountain Rifle. And I will say this, with the Woods Runner, Ethan stacks round balls on top of each other at 100 yards off the bench easy. We've killed squirrels, headshots of squirrels. We got videos of it all the time at 20 yards. If you really want to see some really, really good shooting with it, go watch a Black Powder TV. And I think I have on video the most I ever got without swabbing the barrel was I ran 50 rounds. As far as that goes, there's no burrs in that barrel, but it really depends on your lube. If you really want good stuff, get Blackie Thomas's gun butter. You can shoot that stuff all day. You wear your shoulder out before you'll get that gun stuck, in my opinion. Would you say, Snapper?
That's some great stuff. Yeah, that's some great stuff, man. That Blackie Thomas's lube, that is, woo.
The snake oil?
The snake oil.
The real
Crisco.
The real accuracy of the Southern Mountain or the Kibler guns comes from their extremely fast lock time. So like with my 36, it's just as accurate as a 22, pretty much.
I would say that would be very similar to what Jake's was. It has more kick than a 22, but it felt like that thing is just dead accurate if you do your part.
Well, I'm shooting a little bitty 35 caliber round ball and a 36 patched with 30 to 40 grains behind it. A real squirrel rifle. Like you can punch it up a little bit, but it feels like a 22, even though it's more like a 9mm ballistically.
Just to say that I have a bad flinch when it comes to flintlocks, and that was one of the very few flintlocks I ever shot where even through the slow-mo, I was actually proud of myself. I was like, holy cow, I didn't move at all. And it's just because it's so well made.
Yep.
It's just so fast, so well made that even with a flinch, probably still going to hit it as long as the flinch isn't crazy bad.
Yeah. Madras, I got to ask, have you ever been into a flintlock rifle or just the smoothbore stuff?
Just the smoothbore, but I do want to branch off into the rifle.
Okay.
like I said, when I leave service, I want to get myself a Kentucky long rifle and a flintlock. Probably 50 caliber is what I'm looking at. Something I can take, deer hunting and stuff like that. The Martini Henry's probably a little bit too overkill to go deer hunting.
We don't believe in overkill here.
Yeah.
It definitely probably will do the job. I took it with me when I went hunting in Texas, but I didn't ever get to shoot it. So
Considering I've seen guys shoot a deer with a 300 Win Mag, I think it's just fine.
oh yeah,
I gotta say, shooting it with that Martini Henry, you gotta wipe the spit off the stock though. Probably after you. Is it that? I mean, I've never actually. I mean, I know the Martini Henry pretty well, but I've never actually fired one. To be perfectly honest with you, how's the recoil?
Honestly, it's manageable. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. I almost want to say my Brown Bess kicked more.
Mhm.
But it's the heavy barrel on it just kind of counteracts it, and it's a very smooth operating rifle. I absolutely love it. I haven't done an accuracy test with it, but once I get to a range or something, kind of want to do a video on that.
It makes me
How
wonder.
are you making your? Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it makes me wonder if in the 1877 or so, I've read reports of the soldiers complaining about being beat black and blue. You think that's just because they didn't hold it right?
So I know if you you have to make sure to place your thumb on the opposite side of the receiver.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you will, bust your nose with it. I don't know. It's just the way that receiver is designed. That, and of course, the barrel gets hot pretty quick, because when I was reading an account from Warwick's Drift, they were having to take the sleeves off their shirts or jackets and wrap it around the barrel because it got so hot.
Yeah.
That's just black powder, though. I mean, that's every rifle is black powder.
Yeah, even the Brown Bess was like that.
Yeah.
But where do you go about getting your ammunition for that thing? Are you making it yourself out of
Yeah, so
brass
the
shotgun shells?
there's a guy out of Australia that makes the shotgun shell, or he necks them down and everything and sizes them correctly. And so I had to order the shells from him. The primers are large pistol primers, which used to be I could get them easy. I don't know about now. I've heard it's getting pretty tough to find.
It's a pain in the butt still to get large pistol primers.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. Right when I want to start shooting again.
It's not terrible. I mean,
it's possible to find them. They just really want a lot of money for them.
Magnum pistol primers are way harder to find than just large pistol primers.
Okay.
In my opinion, I just bought 1,000, so it wasn't too bad, and it wasn't nearly as expensive as it was a year ago. I bought them off Gunbroker, actually.
Okay. I'll check that then. I get the bullets from Track of the Wolf. I think they're .491. I think it's like 460 grain bullets, and paper patch them, and then I just seat them on their own inside. Once I put the powder in, the cotton wad, and then the beeswax. I've never had a problem out of them.
Nice. Okay.
A lot of people say I never had like a safety issue out of them. But then again, maybe I do. I shoot Indian-made muskets, so I don't know if that says anything. But I just didn't have a reloading press or anything, and I didn't feel a need to. So yeah.
Hey, it works.
It works for me. So, but yeah.
Kerry Stottlemyre said a 500 grain bullet at 2,275 feet per second will make you question your ability to handle recoil. I bet it will.
I bet it will.
I honestly, though, I'm kind of with you, Madras, on, I fired a lot of big Magnum rifles, modern Magnum rifles. I broke into to modern rifles with a 7mm Magnum and just went up.
Yeah.
And I have yet to find anything that with a heavy load knocks me around as hard as that Brown Bess with a big heavy load in it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about that, but it...
Because it's coming, and it's a little bit slow.
Yep. Yeah.
I
That
think
thing-
Duke. Did you ever? You were the. I've never tried this, but did you not try a 74 caliber round ball with a 200 grain charge?
I tried 69 with
Yeah,
a,
that's what Caleb shoots. But
yeah, and I wasn't getting very good accuracy out of mine, but no, I cut mine back to where I was doing 80, 90 grains, and I found out about 90 grains with a patch 715, that brown best can stack them in a group that big at 50 yards, which, everybody like, oh, that at 50 yards. Well, considering that the size of the ball, that is a clover.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ball is almost 1 MOA in size.
I'll tell you what. Between Ethan and Caleb, we burn a lot of lead around here through those things. That's the one thing I will say about them. It will eat your lead supply.
Oh yeah.
You cast your own, Madras?
No, I want to. I used to have to buy my own, so I'd have like this big old bag of lead shot, and people at the range just sit there and they'd watch and they'd get curious and everything. But I just sit there and load it up and everything. I'd spend all day out there shooting. I just absolutely loved
Were
it.
you going down there with your rake and shovel at the end and scooping it back? Well, you weren't casting, I guess. So
I wasn't casting at that, no. So, but I wish I did. I'm gonna have to get off here. I got a 6
Okay.
a.m. wake up, but
Okay, well, we appreciate you coming on, and that was
Okay.
actually a really fun conversation.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was.
It's very nice meeting you.
Yeah, it's
Well,
nice meeting you guys.
We'll have you back, I promise, because I know when Ethan gets a little more signal, you two are going to have to talk a lot more about India-made muskets.
Well, 100%. So a little shy on the first one, but yeah, we'll
No worries.
we'll get some good conversation going.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate you coming on here, and everybody, I will put a link to his channel in the video if you're watching this after it's live. I can't do it right now, but go check out Madras Arsenal. He's got some pretty good stuff. He's been checking out some Western forts and stuff, the kind of
Yeah.
stuff we all like.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll see you.
All right, see
Have a
y'all.
good night.
Y'all too.
Shot Sheila said, I don't know why they whine about the Martini Henry. I use 85 grains of Swiss 2F, and it's not even unpleasant. I kind of wonder if it's just the way the rifle's built. Like I said, I haven't had a lot of experience shooting them. Carson Brandom says, any relief in sight for straight wall black powder cartridge brass? I feel for you, Garrett. I saw you short on your Reach and 5070 brass purchase. Yikes. I've talked to Starline a year ago, and they said by the next year we'll do a run. Actually, I did, I think, a year and a half ago. Duke talked to him a year ago, didn't you, Duke?
Yeah, or it was this summer. No, it was this summer. This past summer, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll come out with it pretty soon, and I'll be stuck with a bunch of really expensive brass, but I need it now, not a year from now.
Yeah.
Let's see. A few more questions here. I have been having a lot of fun. A few things here. Shot Sheila's talking about where to get brass. He says Martin Robinson used to have brass shotgun shells, and they take small pistol primers. He sells bullet molds too. Caesar said my Fusey de Chasse knocks me around pretty bad because of the stock shape. Yeah, it'll knock your teeth because of the way that cow hoof stock is. It punch you right there. Oh yeah, Ethan said I think it's something that kicks worse than the Brown Bess is the matchlock loaded with a proper load. Yeah, 240 grain charge in the matchlock. That was exciting.
Back when men were men.
Yeah, and then Ethan gave that load to Mom and told her it wouldn't kick.
Oh,
He filmed it on Thanksgiving.
oh no.
At least she knew how to shoot, so at least she knew to pull it tight. Oh. Yeah, my shoulder feels it already on the wall gun. I can only get my brass from Bertram for my big 50. Yeah, I'd love that. That's if I get it. We were talking earlier about Sharps 5140. If I put out the money for a Sharps, even like a Shiloh, it's gonna be 5090. Because that's the big 50, right, Duke? That's the one you gotta have.
Yeah.
If you can get
Yep.
one, I would love a 5070 carbine, but it's like if I'm putting out for a big business rifle or something, 5090s would be the one I feel like I have to have.
And the thing is, you could ream the chamber out and you can still shoot 50-70.
Yeah, oh yeah, buy a 57. But that would be, I wouldn't see the point in a 5070 rifle as much as I would the carbine. Like I said, yeah, if I bought a 5070 rifle, I'd probably bore it out because I want to reach out further. If I got the big rifle, you might as well do it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
No, yeah, Ethan said the round he gave mom wasn't that hot. It was only 125 grades.
Only.
Yeah.
Nice thing about a matchlock is if you smoke cigarettes and don't have a match, you already got a way to light it.
You know the nice thing about a matchlock, it erases flinch for that gun. Because there's no time. As soon as the match is in there, you don't know exactly when it's going to go off, so you don't get a chance.
It's just going to go off randomly.
It's just going to go off
today. Is it going to go off next week?
You don't get a chance to flinch because it's my uncle used to always say, "Let it surprise you." Well, it'll surprise you. I mean, you might flinch 3 times with the match going down, then you're like, "Oh, it didn't go off." Oh, Sharpshooter said that's my next custom build caliber. I've got even brass for 5090. Gotta get. Salvador said, "Gotta get that almost a mile shot." I don't know about you guys.
That would be a lot of fun to attempt. That would be a lot of fun to attempt.
It might just be me, but man, I have trouble seeing a man-sized target after 600 yards.
Yeah, that would be hard.
I mean, it gets out there.
The only way he could have seen them, honestly, is because they were silhouetted against the background.
Skyline
on that hill.
Horseback, wouldn't he be?
If you are not, there's no way he would have probably seen them without at least some kind of an optic.
That's a good question. When did he start seeing optics?
Shiloh is producing 1863s again. Ooh.
Oh, cool.
Let's see what we've got here. I got to put together, see what's going to take. Oh, it's only percussion. They don't have a cartridge version. Dad nabbit.
So did any of the guys have optics in any of those fights that you know about?
Optics? No, I've never read anything about optics.
I thought,
I just don't see how he could, without them being on, like, that's the only way you could have seen them to even know they were there. I'm sure you would have known they were there.
Yeah, because there's
being
a
on
cluster
horseback
of them up there.
Yeah.
You got lucky, but I'm on it. I mean, I shoot at 300 yards at a torso target, and to be perfectly honest,
not
that
much
thing's
there.
pretty small.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even on like a modern rifle, like an M4, right? The front sight post is bigger than the person at 350 yards.
And unless
way
it's
bigger.
painted white, man, it's really hard to see at 600 because I know where 600 is, and it's like that dude is smaller than the tip top.
Oh yeah, you're talking your sight post will look like a building compared to the person. You know, yeah. At that kind of distance, it's all luck at that point. But if I was the person who made that shot, it would definitely have been skill. I'd have been like, yeah, it was definitely skill.
Kind of like shooting that long 300-yard shot with that 45 Colt pistol. We
Yeah,
ain't doing that
there you go,
anymore
dude.
today, boys. We're done.
We're done.
Kind of like Duke.
So I tested another thing because if I miss, no.
I so wish we could have saved the footage on this.
Yeah, that would have been worse. That would have been amazing.
I don't know if you could ever make it out, but you see the bullet hole, right?
Yep.
There.
A little bit there. Yep, right there.
Yep. 300 yards.
It's a shame that he didn't say that.
Almost
In
got
a gopher hole.
Yeah, I almost got a coyote at 100 with a 1911.
So I've had this crazy idea. I got Jake laughing pretty hard about it, but I kind of figured it'd probably be really stupid to do. Yeah, you always get people yell at you for facing your barrel at the camera.
Mm-hmm.
I was really contemplating buying a cheap GoPro and shooting it, pretending not to shoot it. Like, oh, look, I'm bang, at the GoPro, just because I'm so tired of getting people saying, oh, don't point the barrel at the camera. Like there's a person standing there.
If you're still watching, Doug, that was Al Fraskin's The 4570 Springfield Book 2. I'll text it to you if you're not. Let's see.
Huh.
Okay. So, Sharpshooter 74 said, I'm currently working with NOE bullet molds to release a long-range 50 cal mold bullet weight 697 grains with pure lead. That'd be interesting.
That'd be cool.
Whatever happened to our haven't seen him in a long time, our regional bullet mold maker? He used to be your buddy.
Oh, Mark Hubbs?
No, Kaido Ijima.
Oh, Kaido? Yeah, he's
his
still
name
around.
right.
He posts on Facebook or every so often. But yeah, I don't know what the current status on his bullet molds are. But I need to bring you guys all the bullets he sent me because I'm not going to be able to get them tested there anytime soon. And he sent me a bunch of them for to review, and I've never reviewed them.
Yeah, Doug, if you want me to, I can email you pictures of those pages here after the show. You can see at least what's going on in there. Let's see. So, Snapper, you got any good videos coming out? I shouldn't say good videos because obviously you're not going to be.
Yeah, we know my channel. They know they're not going to be good videos. Mostly there is things lined up. I got to get a bunch of videos sent out to Jake because I ended up doing most of the recording because I had like slow-mo.
Mm-hmm.
Other than collaborations with Jake, there's a couple videos that I should finally release soon. I've got like a lot of videos.
One apocalyptic one. I'm waiting on that.
I mean, I could always do a Dragoon one again. That's pretty apocalyptic.
No.
At least it feels that way.
You already have a testimonial.
Oh yeah, well. Oh, I see where you're going here. Yes. Yes, I completely forgot about that. Yes, that is going to be the next one out. That is going to be going out soon. That's either going to make us or break us.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Everybody's going to either love us or hate us. We'll find out soon.
You will find out soon. Well, so anyway, I got to take some pictures here. You guys have any more questions there? Shout them out. Sharpshooter 74 said, I don't have too much issue seeing torso target at 1,000 yards looking for peep sights. You got better eyes than me.
You got way better eyes than I do.
I believe you because I know it's been done a lot in history. It's just not by me.
Yeah.
The reason why a lot of those long-range sharps competition guys, their sights, they have the two holes. They've got a hole in the front sight and a hole in the back sight because then you can see the target through the hole and your eye will naturally line up those two holes centered in each other. And then
I used to have a H&R Buffalo Classic 1871 4570 that had that setup. I kind of wish I kept it because it was just it was like a H&R breakover rifle, but it was like really, really long. You've seen them. But I was told you could have bored that dude up to 45 120 easy because the steel was good and there was lots of meat in it.
Yeah, and you can buy the Pedersoli sharps. You buy a 4570, you can ream that out to 45 110 because they produce the same, that 45 110, the same barrels.
It's probably just reamed out to the 45 110. Yeah.
But the thing of it is, like if you want to shoot smokeless, stay with 4570 because after that, you're just wasting case space. You can't really exceed 4570 pressure safely with those longer cartridges. Unless you go into something like a Ruger No. 1 or something like that.
Gentlemen, I might have to go here in a second.
Yeah, okay. We're about to close it down anyway. I'm just taking these pictures before I forget.
No worries.
Okay.
Ouch. How many people are still out there right at the moment?
43. We peaked out at about 68.
Nice. Thanks, guys, for still sticking in this long.
Okay. Sharpshooter said, I'm wanting to do a Billy Dixon commemorative for my custom build rifle. Donald Benson said, Moose molds will make you whatever whatever bullet you want. He's always down at the NSSA. A lot of shooters use his molds. Sabador said, "What are you guys' thoughts on the Ballard?" I have
I've
to
never-
remember what the Ballard even looks like. I read about it a lot, but I have to stop and think. I've never actually held one, obviously.
Let's see. Oh yeah, the Ballard. That's the one that I think they call it a Hepburn rifle too, or it's similar to the
Can you
Hepburn.
show a picture? I don't know why I cannot picture this thing either.
It's
see if I
like
can
a
find one while
Winchester falling or high wall, low wall.
Okay.
Yeah, it's used by the Kentucky Volunteers because I think that's kind of what the Hepburn rifle was based off of. No, never mind. I'm thinking something totally different.
Yeah, it looks like that's kind of a cool looking gun.
So yeah, it's
I've
a.
heard the
looks
name a
like-
million times. I
It
don't know
looks
why I
like
can't
if you
think of it.
crossed a Remington rolling block with a Winchester 76 with a.
It's actually a cross with that and a Winchester low wall.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of get an idea then. Okay.
Let me grab one here. I got. If I don't do that, that'd been a bad idea. About kill the whole stream.
But there are guys that do put Winchester levers on them things.
Well, that's what I was just looking at. The one I was looking at had a Winchester lever.
The original didn't have that.
So they use the lever to drop the block.
Yeah. Well, this is the one I was just looking at. It's probably a
Yeah,
knockoff.
no, I totally misspoke.
Oh,
Yeah, Hepburn, but it's
okay.
Hepburn's totally different.
Well, it looks like that. Even though that's a little bit. But Duke
Looks
right,
like,
that might have the Winchester lever on it. That's the first one I saw.
Yeah.
A Winchester that made it with a rolling block.
Yeah, or a high wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, the original one didn't have that lever on it. It had a different style lever. Looks closer to a sharp style lever with an extra kink at the back of it. Let's see, where did they use that? They had it, and there's a lot of variants of it, but yeah, it was 44 Ballard long, 32 long, 38 long, 32 40 Ballard, 38 50 Ballard, 38 55 Ballard, 40 63 70 Ballard, 40 65, 40 70, 44 75, 44 77 Sharps. All the last ones I named off for Ballards. 40 85 90 Ballard, 44 90 Sharps, 44 100 Ballard, 40 90 Ballard, 40 90 Sharps, 45 70 Government, 50 70 Government, 44 40 Winchester, 45 100 Ballard, and 45 Sharps. So they made a bunch of them.
Yeah.
A lot of them must have been converted because they, let's see, 3,000 were made between 1862 and 1865. And then after that, Ball and Williams took over. Then Merrimack Arms, Brown Manufacturing, and then J.M. Marlin.
Doug, you should be getting those pictures right now.
Yeah.
Thoughts on 1885 high walls versus the Sharps?
I still like the Sharps.
I think I know what Duke's going to say, and let me see if I can say what he's thinking. Great design, fine rifle, just too late in history for me to be interested in it.
Yeah,
that
pretty
much.
And it basically takes the Winchester, or excuse me, the Borchardt kind of that design, and Winchester basically uses that. But that one was, see, the high wall, that one was made by Browning, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think that was one of his first.
Yeah, that's the one he sold, or
Yeah.
he sent the wood thing too. And Winchester went out there and looked at it, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, I got this lever action one there." And then the 1886 lever action came out, or vice versa.
My thoughts are my real love of the history. If you're gonna be like here, I mean, obviously, if we're not talking about Mountain Men or anything, I love 72 through about 76. So Sharps fits right in there. Trapdoors do, and so does about everything else. Because that's when people really started coming into my area, and so I really like that era. After 1880, I'm like, you got a few northern buffalo herds, but what good to me outside of bears? I don't see the real point in having those big bore single shot rifles when Winchester's already coming. I mean, the buffaloes are gone.
Yeah, by 85, the last of the buffalo herds in the north are being pretty well decimated down. But up there, it wasn't so much for hides as more as it was for tongues and meats. A lot on the tongues.
You got those eras, say War of 1812. I really like the civilian. Take a look at Seth Kinman, I believe, right? The Mountain Man. Look at his gun. He had a gun from the War of 1812 that was a rifle that had been converted to percussion lock later on. Fur trade era. Northwest trade guns, great. I love the Lehman rifle. Great stuff. Those are what I want to have. Civil War. Look at an Enfield, a 63, or a Springfield. That's cool stuff. Post-Civil War, Sharps and trapdoors are awesome. By the time you get up into 1885, I probably want a single action army, even though there's doubles, and a Winchester rifle. It's just that's where the interest is at that point.
Yep, because there's not a lot of use for a big single shot rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that your 4440 will take down a deer just as easy as Sharps would.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And if you're an older guy, then you probably still have one of those leftover Sharps. It's one of those things. What does it gain you over the old gun?
Yeah.
I always have to ask myself, what is that? What does that gain you
Not
over
much.
a cheaper Sharp at the time?
Not much.
And it's just not as iconic, I guess. I don't know. That's just my feelings. I don't have to mean anything. But
Matter of fact, I finally did a weird test that I've never done before because I've always been scared to do it, but I actually forgot about it, so I said, screw it, I'll try it. We shot on Saturday, and today, right before the show, I finally cleaned my single-action army. So it's been sitting that entire time after a lot of bullets put through it. Still completely free.
Still completely free.
Yeah, you can still turn it with your pinky. And, I mean, it just shocks me. I know it should do that, and it's made to do that, but it still shocks me. You get used to shooting other guns, and, after 30 rounds or so, you got to start cleaning it a little bit. Not those single actions. You shoot all day long, and I think we'll never get stuck.
Yep. By the 1880s, I would say I would be way more concerned with two-legged predators than four.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at there. Well, you guys about ready to
Anytime.
close her down?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to have to go take a nap. I've got an odd work schedule. I got to be into work at 3 a.m.
Well,
Fun.
that sounds exciting. Appreciate everybody coming out here. Gina Woods said, howdy, guys. Great seeing my sons, and good night. That was all in one go.
Good night, Mama Woods.
I
And I
appreciate
didn't pass the whole time, Mom Woods.
Yeah, he was a good boy this time.
He did a really good job. So that's a pretty good stream for us, and I hope we have Madras back because that was kind of interesting. Obviously, we always do what we always do. We get to talking and forget we have a guest, and I apologize for that, but we were having fun. So anyway, as always, guys, are we having Tales of the Trails next week?
Possibly. We're on
Okay.
stand.
All right. We'll write it down as a definite maybe. All right.
Yep.
So anyway, trust in God, guys. Keep your powder dry. Bye.